So now we will be proceeding further. So till now, in the last 3 days, we have done the marathon series in which we have covered a good chunk of chapters. Now let us see till now what and all we have covered. If you come to this index, a bunch of chapters we have actually covered, which are very important from the examination point of view. Like we have covered introduction to GST, then we have covered supply under GST. This also we have done. Charge of GST we have completed. Registration we are done. Composition levy we are done. Then we have thereafter we have completed value of supply chapter, and then we have completed input tax credit chapter. So altogether somewhere around some 7 chapters we have successfully revised till now. So now we will try to proceed further. Now we will take up the next bunch of important chapters and we will try to revise them, from which there will be a compulsory question, but which will be actually small chapters that we'll try to pick up and we'll try to do the revision. So first what I will try to do is I will try to hit this 14th chapter, which is regarding place of supply. Thereafter TDS and TCS. First we will try to complete these two small chapters only. Place of supply is very important. Why? Because there also, as I have told, there are some chapters without which there will not be a question paper. So one such chapter is value of supply, one such chapter is input tax credit. So in on the same lines, one more important chapter without which there will not be a question paper, a question without a question from it. So one such a chapter is place of supply. And also these days very frequently they are asking TDS and TCS related questions also. These two are very small chapters, very important from the examination perspective. So that's why we will try to cover them. So first we'll start with place of supply. So let me go ahead and start the place of supply chapter. Yeah, here we have it. So we'll try to do quickly place of supply chapter, but before that, little bit of intro, what exactly this chapter is going to talk about. So if you guys remember the discussion, whatever we had in the introduction to GST chapter, there I was saying that which GST you are going to collect, that depends on bifurcation of supply. So we have to divide supplies into two categories. Either it could be an intrastate supply or it could be an interstate supply. So whatever supplies are happening under GST, so that we can broadly divide into two categories. One is intrastate supply and the other one is interstate supply. So if you remember the definition, sir, what do you mean by intrastate supply? What do you mean by interstate supply? I told that if the location of the supplier and the place of supply both are falling within same state or both are falling within same union territory, that we are going to call it as intrastate supply. So on the other hand, if the location of the supplier and the place of supply, if they are falling in two different states or two different union territories or between one state and one union territory, that we are going to call it as interstate supplies. So once we establish whether it is an intrastate supply or it is an interstate supply, thereafter only we can decide what kind of GST we are required to impose. Are we required to impose CGST, SGST, or are we required to impose IGST? So that depends on this bifurcation. First, we have to first we have to classify the supply, whether it is interstate supply or it is an intrastate supply. So, and two important factors. If you see here in deciding whether a supply is interstate supply or intrastate supply, only two factors are relevant for that decision. One is location of the supplier, and the other one is place of supply. So when it comes to location of the supplier, we can easily find it out. Location of the supplier, finding the location of the supplier is not that difficult. Location of the supplier can be easily found out. So where the difficulty actually lies is determining the place of supply. How to determine the place of supply? So if you could determine the place of supply, location of supplier we can anyhow easily find it out. So if we could know these two factors, what is the location of the supply and what is the place of supplier, what is the location of the supplier and what is the place of supply, automatically we can classify whether it is intrastate or interstate. So this is where the place of supply is going to play the very crucial role. Place of supply is very important in the entire GST system, because unless and until you establish the place of supply, you will not be in a position to decide whether it is an interstate supply or intrastate supply. You will not be able to proceed ahead and calculate the GST figure. So that's what this chapter is going to guide us. So where this place of supply related rules are there. So these place of supply related rules are given under IGST Act. See, in all the rest of the chapters, whenever we are discussing the provisions, we are actually discussing the sections of the CGST Act. Like I have told, section 7 supply, section 8 composite supply, mixed supply. Then we have covered section number 9, which is talking about charge, 10 composition levy, 15 valuation. So like that we have covered various sections till now, no? And at various instances I have given reference to the section numbers, right? So all those sections, wherever I have given the section number references, all those are actually sections from the CGST Act. They are all sections from CGST Act. But in this chapter, when we are discussing the place of supply rules, place of supply related regulations are provided under IGST Act. Place of supply related rules and regulations are contained not in the CGST Act. Place of supply related rules and regulations are contained under IGST Act. So here, if you look at IGST Act, there are 4 sections which are actually talking about the place of supply. One is section number 10, section number 11, section number 12, and section number 13. So section number 10 will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of goods. How to determine place of supply in case of goods for other than imports and exports. Basically, for domestic transactions in supply of goods, how to determine the place of supply, that is contained in section number 10. Whereas we'll have section number 11. Section number 11 will be talking about once again how to determine place of supply regarding goods only, but it will talk about imports and exports. This we are not going to learn at the CA inter level. This we are going to learn it at the CA final level. So how to determine place of supply in respect of goods involving import and export transactions, that we are not going to learn here. We'll learn it at the CA final level. Then we have section number 12. Section number 12 will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of services. Once again, section number 12 will become applicable. How to determine place of supply for services when the location of the supplier and the place of supply, if both are in India. When the location of the supplier and the place of supply both are in India, how to determine the place of supply for supply of services. That's what contained in section number 12. Whereas section number 13 will determine how to determine place of supply in case of services where either location of the supplier or location of the recipient. Sorry, I have told you something wrong here. So section number 12 will say how to determine place of supply in case of services when the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient. When the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient, if both are in India, then section number 12 will come into applicability. Whereas section number 13 will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of supply of services where either the location of the supplier or the location of the recipient is outside of India, or both are outside of India. In those cases, how to determine the place of supply, that is covered under section number 13. Section number 13 also we are not going to learn it at the CA inter level. We are only going to talk about section number 10 and 12. Basically regarding domestic transactions only we are concerned here. So how to determine the place of supply in case of domestic transactions, that's what we are going to learn it at the CA inter level, and which is discussed under 2 sections of the IGST Act. Section 10 of the IGST Act will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of goods involving the domestic transactions. Section number 12 will talk about how to determine the place of supply in respect of services where the location of the supplier and location of the recipient both are in India. Understood? So this is what the overall structure of the chapter. Now having said that, now we have to go to section number 10. We have to understand how to determine that place of supply in case of goods. We have to go to section number 12. There are various subsections involved in each section. Each subsection will be talking about different scenarios and what will be the place of supply in that scenario. So all that discussion we need to have it now. So I will start my discussion with section number 10. I'll start my discussion with section number 10. So let us try to have a quick look at it. So section number 10, as you could see, place of supply of goods other than goods imported into or exported from India. So for other than imports and exports, how to determine the place of supply. So as you could see here we will have various clauses. We have 10 subsection 1, and under 10 subsection 1 we have various clauses. Like clause A is there, it will talk about certain cases how to determine place of supply. Clause B is there, it will talk about certain cases how to determine place of supply. So like that, each clause is going to talk about different circumstances. Let us try to cover each clause. First one, supply involving movement of the goods. In case if you are making a supply of goods which involves movement, goods are required to be moved from one place to another place in order to effect that supply. That means, let us say for example, I'm a manufacturer. One day a dealer has come to me, a wholesaler has come to me. He ordered from me 10,000 quantity of the raw material. So now I have to deliver him. So these goods are required to be moved. This 10,000 quantity of goods are required to be moved from my factory to the recipient's factory in order for the sale to get completed. So in those cases, wherever the supply is involving the movement of the goods, sir, what will be considered as place of supply? They simply say that here in these cases, the place of supply is going to be the place wherever the movement of the goods terminates for delivery to the recipient. Simply, if I have to put it, wherever the movement is coming to an end, the location at which the movement is coming to an end, that will become the place of supply. So if I give you a simple scenario, let us say a manufacturer is there who is located in Delhi. He has got an order from a customer who is in Mumbai. So now these goods are required to be moved. This supplier is making a supply of the goods which involves movement. The goods are starting from here. The movement is starting from here. The movement will terminate. Where the movement will come to an end? The movement will come to an end at the Mumbai, at the recipient's place. So wherever the movement is terminating, wherever the movement is coming to an end, that will become place of supply. So where the movement is terminating, sir, at Mumbai the movement is terminating, sir. So the place of supply will become Mumbai, which is Maharashtra. Sir, what is location of the supplier? Location of the supplier is Delhi. Location of the supplier is in Delhi. Place of supply is in Maharashtra. Both are falling in 2 different states. So it will be considered as interstate supply. On this transaction, what GST will be collected, sir? IGST will be collected. Understood? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Right. Next one. Let us try to proceed ahead with the subsequent discussion. So this is what regarding section 10 subsection 1 clause A. Then now let us come to section 10 subsection 1 clause B. Sir, what does section 10 subsection 1 clause B talk about? Section 10 subsection 1 clause B says that it involves how to determine the place of supply in case of bill to ship to transaction. How to determine the place of supply in case of bill to ship to transaction. So if you remember in the previous session when I was discussing about the input tax credit chapter, I have already explained what is a bill to ship to transaction. Do you guys remember what is a bill to ship to transaction? In the previous session when we are discussing that input tax credit, at one case I have told bill to ship to transaction. So here also an issue has come. 10 subsection 1 clause B is there, which is saying how to determine place of supply in case of bill to ship to transaction. First of all, what is bill to ship to transaction? Once again, I will give you a quick example. Let us say B has actually placed an order with Mr. A to order for to supply 10,000 quantity of the goods. But in the meantime, Mr. C, let me give you some scenarios here. Supplier is in Delhi. This recipient is in Mumbai. So he initially placed an order with Mr. A, 1,000 quantity of the goods. But in the meantime, there is another customer who is from Delhi who placed an order with this person, Mr. B, to supply the same 1,000 quantity. Now, what Mr. B has done is, dear Mr. A, you do one thing. Whatever goods I have ordered to you, you don't send it to me. You directly deliver it. You ship that goods. You ship the goods to Mr. C, who is at Delhi, and you bill to me. You give the bill to me. So you give the invoice in my name, whereas you ship the goods to Mr. C. So now the transaction between A and B, that I call it as bill to ship to transaction. What transaction it is? It is a bill to ship to transaction. So in case of bill to ship to transaction, here two transactions are involved. One transaction is between A and B, and another transaction is between B and C. B will also give the invoice. No. So B will give invoice to C, whereas he will get the delivery of the goods from Mr. A, whatever it is. So here two invoices are involved. A to B, one transaction, B to C, another transaction. Now I will come to A to B. A to B only will be considered as bill to ship to transaction because A is billing to B, but he is shipping to C. So the transaction between A to B is a bill to ship to transaction. Sir, what will be the place of supply here? So now you should not go to 10 subsection 1 clause B, clause A. You have to come to 10 subsection 1 clause B because this is a specific clause. So it is a specific clause. Specific clause says what? So we all are aware specific clause overrides the general clause. So 10 subsection 1 clause B is a bill to ship to transaction. It is a section only given for determining place of supply for bill to ship to. And it says, what does it say? It says that here the place of supply will be considered to be the place of business of this recipient only. He will not receive it. No. He will not receive the goods. No. But still for the transaction between A to B, what will be considered as place of supply? So if you read it here, when goods are delivered by supplier to the recipient at the instruction of a third person who is original buyer, place of supply is a principal place of business of the third person, which means here for the transaction between A and B, the place of supply will be considered as a principal place of business of Mr. B. Now, what is the principal place of business of Mr. B? Mumbai. So here the place of supply will become Mumbai. So for transaction between A and B, location of the supplier is in Delhi, place of supply is in Mumbai. It is an interstate supply. What will be levied? IGST will be levied. Okay. So for bill to ship to transaction, it will always be deemed that as per 10 subsection 1 clause B, the principal place of business of the original buyer will be considered to be the place of supply. Now, sir, what about B and C, sir? There is a transaction is happening between B and C. No. Now it will be governed. In that case, how to determine place of supply? For transaction between B to C, you will be governed by the default rule 10 subsection 1 clause A. It is a supply involving the movement of the goods. So now as per 10 subsection 1 clause A, just now as we have covered, the place wherever the movement is terminating, the place wherever the movement is coming to an end, where the movement is coming to an end, Delhi. So for transaction between B and C, it will be governed by 10 subsection 1 clause A only, supply involving the movement of the goods. The movement is terminating where? At Delhi. So here the place of supply will become Delhi. So what is the location of the supplier? Here B is the supplier. B's location is Mumbai. So B is located in Mumbai. Location of the supplier is Mumbai, whereas place of supply is in Delhi. Both are falling in once again two different states. It will also be considered as interstate supply. On that also IGST will be imposed. Clear? Understood? So generally in the entire B2C, in the entire bill to ship to scenario, there will be two transactions involved. One transaction will be bill to ship to, which will be governed by 10 subsection 1 clause B. Another transaction will be a normal transaction, which will be governed by the 10 subsection 1 clause A. I hope you're all clear about it. So we have covered 10 subsection 1 clause A, 10 subsection 1 clause B. Now we will talk about 10 subsection 1 clause C. Sir, what is 10 subsection 1 clause C talking about? 10 subsection 1 clause C talks about how to determine the place of supply in case supply is not involving the movement. Sometimes we make supply of the goods without involving any movement of the goods. We are causing a supply of goods, but it does not require any movement. To effect that supply, movement of the goods is not required. In those cases, how to determine the place of supply is the act says it is a location of the goods at the time of delivery to the recipient, at the time when you are handing over, at the time when you are transferring the ownership to the recipient, wherever the goods are located, that will become the place of supply. Once again, for this also I will give you one small example. Let us say I'm a supplier. There is one supplier. I'm selling an immobile property along with furniture. There is a building. Along with that building, I'm also selling the furniture. Inside that building, there is a furniture. That furniture also I'm selling to a recipient. So let us say for this immobile property 1 CR, for this furniture 10 lakhs. See, sale of immobile property is not a supply. Sale of completed building, sale of land is not a supply. Why? Because it is getting covered under Schedule 3. You keep this aside. But I am selling the furniture. No, furniture is a mobile property. No, so I am selling the furniture. Let us say this building is located. This supplier is in Delhi. Now this recipient, the person whoever is selling this immobile property along with furniture, this recipient is in Chennai. Okay, this property is located in Hyderabad. So this property is located in Hyderabad. So this person is selling the immobile property along with furniture to a recipient who is in Chennai. So leave out immobile property, you take it out. That is not a supply. But furniture is goods. It is supply of goods happening. So I'm making a supply of furniture. But do you think in order to effect this supply, is the furniture required to be moved? No. There is no requirement of moving that furniture. Furniture will remain there at the building only. Just this person has to go and take the possession. So I'm making supply of furniture, but that furniture doesn't require any movement. Why? Because that furniture will remain there only at the building only. He has to go there and use it. That's all. So now this is what typically a scenario which is a supply of the goods without involving any movement. Here 10 subsection 1 clause C will come into picture, which says that the location wherever the goods are there at the time when the delivery has happened to the recipient, that will become the place of supply. So where the goods are located at the time of actual delivery, they are located at Hyderabad. So what will become place of supply? Place of supply will become Hyderabad. What is the location of the supplier? Delhi. Both are located in two different states. It will fall under interstate supply. IGST will become applicable. Understood? Clear everybody? So this is what regarding 10 subsection 1 clause C. So we have covered 10 subsection 1 clause A, clause B, clause C. So repeat, clause A will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of supply of the goods which involve movement. Clause B will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of bill to ship to transaction. Clause number C will talk about those circumstances which involves supply of the goods without involving any movement. Now we have one more clause, 10 subsection 1 clause CA. There is one more clause called 10 subsection 1 clause CA, which says that whenever you are making supply of the goods to a recipient who is an unregistered person, if you are making supply of the goods to a recipient who is an unregistered person, then you will be governed by 10 subsection 1 clause CA. Don't go to 10 subsection 1 clause A, clause B, clause C. Don't go there. Why? Because they have specifically given one clause for unregistered person. In case if you are making supply of goods where your recipient is an unregistered person, if the recipient is an unregistered person, if you are making supply of the goods, don't go to 10 subsection 1C etc. Whether it involves movement, whether it does not involve movement, don't go and look there. Why? Because once again, it is a specific clause. 10 subsection 1 clause C is clause CA is a specific clause which is talking only about, which is specifically saying that when the recipient is unregistered, come to this section and determine the place of supply. So we'll come to this section only. We will not go to A, B and C. Okay. So when the recipient is unregistered, directly you have to come to 10 subsection 1 clause CA. So what does that 10 subsection 1 clause CA say? Let us see. So supply of goods to an unregistered person. So in that circumstances, place of supply shall be if the location of the recipient is available, is recorded on the invoice. Supplier will give invoice, no? On that invoice, if the location of the recipient is recorded, then the location of the recipient will become place of supply. In case if the address of the recipient is not recorded on the invoice, then the location of the supplier will become the place of supply. Simple rule, thumb rule, you have to remember it. So in case if the recipient is an unregistered person, how to determine the place of supply? So it simply says one thing, supplier will give the invoice, no? Check the invoice. On the invoice, is the address of the recipient recorded? Yes sir, address of the recipient is recorded on the invoice, location of the recipient. On the invoice, if I checked it, there is no address of the recipient available, just name of the recipient has been mentioned, address of the recipient is not mentioned, then the location of the supplier itself will be considered as place of supply. Okay, sir, what do you mean by recording of the address? Is the supplier required to record the door number, street, area, everything? Is he required to record? Is he required to record? Not required. What do you mean by recording of address here is just recording the name of the state. If the name of the state of the recipient is recorded on the invoice, it will be deemed as if the address of the recipient has been recorded. That state will be considered as a place of supply. As simple as that. So if you see here, recording name of the state on the invoice is deemed to be the recording of address. Clear? Able to understand? So very simple, 10 subsection 1 clause CA. But here department gave one circular. Let us say sometimes what will happen is through the e-commerce operator, we place the orders, no? Let us say from Amazon, a person has placed an order. Now it is supply of goods. Let us say I ordered a mobile phone on Amazon. I am a recipient who is an unregistered person. I am a recipient who is an unregistered person. So supply of the goods where the recipient is an unregistered person. So it should come to 10 subsection 1 clause CA. Sir, what will be the place of supply? If on the invoice, if they record my address, if on the invoice they record my address, that location of the recipient will become place of supply. And generally you might have observed whenever you purchase a goods from the e-commerce operator, on the invoice your address will be compulsorily recorded. Your address will be compulsorily recorded. So since address will always get recorded in the e-commerce transaction, so that address, location of the recipient will become place of supply. But here there is a problem. Let us say this person is usually having his billing address in Hyderabad. This person is having a usual billing address in Hyderabad. So he mentioned the billing address as Hyderabad, but currently he is in another state. Let us say, for example, currently he is at Chennai for on some work or something. He has gone to Chennai. He kept the delivery address. He kept the delivery address as Chennai. He kept the delivery address as Chennai. See, now the problem is address of the recipient is available. Location of the recipient will be taken as place of supply. But the problem is on the invoice, two addresses are available. One is bill to address, one is billing address, other one is shipping address or delivery address. Sir, which address I have to take it as place of supply? The problem is not non-availability of location of recipient. Here address of the recipient is available, but the problem is on the invoice two addresses are recorded. One is billing address, other one is delivery address. Sir, which location I have to consider as location of recipient, sir? Which I have to consider it as place of supply, sir? Now one circular has been given. You can consider the delivery address. You can consider delivery address, that we will consider it as place of supply. So since here the delivery address has been given as Chennai, so the place of supply will become Tamil Nadu. Clear? Able to understand? So this is very important circular from the examination perspective. Kindly do refer to it. So that's what I was saying here. Right. So for supply, I will read the conclusion. For supplies to an unregistered person, if billing and delivery addresses are differing, supplier may use a delivery address to determine the place of supply. Especially in the case of e-commerce transactions, on the invoice, address of the recipient is available, but two addresses are there. Billing address is there, shipping address is there. You consider delivery address, shipping or delivery address is there. You consider that delivery address. You use that delivery address for the purpose of determining place of supply. Understood? So 4 clauses we have covered. So what are they? Repeat quickly once. 10 subsection 1 clause A, which is talking about supply involving the movement of the goods. 10 subsection 1 clause B, bill to ship to transaction. 10 subsection 1 clause C, supply doesn't involve any movement. 10 subsection 1 clause CA, unregistered recipients. Next, let us come to the next clause. What are other clauses in section 10 subsection 1? Supply involving installation or assembly of goods at site. In case if you are making a supply of goods, but those goods are required to be installed or assembled at site, what will be the place of supply? Very simple, wherever they are installed or assembled. Let us say I am today buying an air conditioner. That air conditioner is requiring installation. Now what will be the place of supply for that air conditioner, sir? Wherever it is getting and coming installed, that will become the place of supply. Sir, I am buying a plant and machinery, sir. That plant and machinery is required to be installed at my factory. Factory is located in some different states, sir. What will be the place of supply? Location wherever that machinery is getting installed, that factory location. So like that, in case if you are making supply of goods which require installation or which require assembly of goods at site, then the place of supply will be location wherever that installation or assembly is occurring. Understood? Next one. Now coming to one more last clause under 10 subsection 1 clause E, which is goods supplied on board day conveyance. Goods supplied on board day conveyance. Sir, what do you mean by goods supplied on board day conveyance? See, sometimes you might be traveling in a conveyance. Let us say you are traveling on a train, or let us say you are traveling on an aircraft. So while you are traveling on an aircraft, let us say for example you wanted to purchase some food, not cooked food, that packaged food will be there, no? So that you want to purchase the food. So you have been given the food. You have been supplied the food. So they are supplying the food to you, supply of goods. But this supply is happening on board day conveyance. When you have boarded a conveyance, when you are mid journey, so during that board day conveyance, if goods are provided, what will be place of supply? So at that point of time, air hostess can't jump out of the window and see currently exactly at the bottom which state is there. That all will not happen. No, that is not practicable. So that's why in case of supply of goods on board day conveyance, let us say for example you are traveling on a train. Sometimes in the train what will happen is some people will come, people will come and send earphones. They will sell you charger, they will sell you that wide bluetooth wide earphones and all they will sell you. So there also the person, let us say that suppliers will not be registered. If at all they are registered, what will be place of supply? Because that is a supply which is happening on board day conveyance. So when I say supply of goods on board day conveyance, either that conveyance operator might be supplying it, or some passengers might be supplying the goods on board day conveyance. So what will be considered as place of supply? Here guidance has been given under 10 subsection 1 clause E, and 10 subsection 1 clause E says that location where the goods were taken on board the conveyance, wherever that goods are taken on board the conveyance, that will be considered as place of supply. Sir, what do you mean by this? I will give you one simple example to make you understand. uh, yeah, let us say for example you are boarding a train. You boarded the train at Chennai, and this train has to go until Delhi. This train has to go until Delhi. So you boarded the train here. You are traveling from Chennai. Now in between, let us say somewhere at Mumbai location, a person entered this train with all this goods which he wants to sell. A person boarded the train at Mumbai to sell the goods. So somewhere in Pune, let us say for example in Pune and all, somewhere at this place. Now what happened is that person has approached your coach, and you wanted to buy the earphone. So let us say for example from that person you purchased the earphones somewhere when the train is around Pune. Now what will be considered as place of supply, sir? This is a case, this is a typical case of supply of goods on board a conveyance. So now what they are saying, 10 subsection 1 clause E says wherever the goods are taken on board the conveyance. So where their goods are brought into that conveyance, these goods are brought into the conveyance. This person has brought these goods, the person whoever is selling the goods, that person has brought the goods into the conveyance at Mumbai. So here that place where the goods are taken on board the conveyance, what is that place here? Mumbai. So Mumbai is in Maharashtra. So what will be the place of supply? It is Maharashtra. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So this is what 10 subsection 1 clause E says. In case of supply of goods on board a conveyance, whether by that conveyance operator or by any passenger, the place of supply will be the location where the goods are taken on board the conveyance. Clear? That's all, my dear students. These are all the different circumstances in case of supply of the goods and how to determine the place of supply. I hope you guys are all able to understand. So total some 6 clauses they have told. 10 subsection 1 clause A, supply involving movement. 10 subsection 1 clause B, bill to ship to transaction. 10 subsection 1 clause C, supply of goods does not involve movement. 10 subsection 1 clause CA, if the recipient is unregistered person. 10 subsection 1 clause D, if the goods require assembly or installation at site. 10 subsection 1 clause E, where the goods are supplied on board a conveyance. So this is what regarding section number 10. Thereafter we have section number 12. Sir, what is section number 12? Sir, in between section number 11 is there. What is happening to section number 11? I have already told you section number 11 is not relevant for CA Inter. That we'll learn it at the CA final. So then in between we have we are coming to section number 12. So what is section number 12? Talking about how to determine place of supply of services where location of the supplier of service and the location of recipient of service both are in India. When the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient, when both are in India, how to determine the place of supply, that guidance is contained under section number 12. So let us try to understand how to determine place of supply for supply of services where the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient both are in India. Right. So now here we have different subsections. So first let us try to understand the structure of section number 12. See, 12 subsection 1 talks about applicability. If you read 12 subsection 1, it will talk about applicability. What it simply says is, in case if you are making supply of services where the location of the recipient and the location of the supplier both are in India, follow section number 12. Apply section number 12. In the below subsections, we have given guidance. Apply that subsections and determine the place of supply. So 12 subsection 1 will talk about applicability. Then we have 12 subsection 2, which we call it as default. 12 subsection 2 is a default provision. Default provision means what? I will come to that later. So 12 subsection 2, something is default provision. Then we have, starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14, we have various subsections. Each subsection will be talking about a specific kind of service and how to determine the place of supply. Like if you take 12 subsection 3, in case if you are offering services in relation to an immobile property, in case of supply of services in relation to immobile property, how to determine the place of supply, that is given guidance under 12 subsection 3. 12 subsection 4 will talk about some kind of services like personal grooming, beauty services, etc. Then we have 12 subsection 5, which is talking about training and performance appraisal services. We have something called 12 subsection 11, which will be talking about telecommunication services. We have something called 12 subsection 14, which is talking about advertisement services provided to government. So like that, starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14, each subsection will be talking about a specific kind of service, and for that service, how to determine the place of supply. Okay, so starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14, each subsection will be talking about a specific kind of service and how to determine the place of supply for that specific kind of service. Okay, so first what will happen is, actually what should happen is, in case if you are making supply of services, first you have to determine what service you are providing. Now you have to go and check whatever service you are offering, is that falling under any of that specific cases. Starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14, is your service getting covered anywhere under any of that subsections? If the answer is yes, you have to follow that subsection for the purpose of determining place of supply. Let us say I am providing telecommunication services. I will come and check whether from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14 where my service is falling. So it is falling under 12 subsection 11. Now 12 subsection 11 only will become applicable. You have to determine place of supply for your telecommunication services as per the guidance given under 12 subsection 11 only. Then let us say another service. I am a chartered accountant. I am providing audit services. Now I will check starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14 where audit service is falling. I will check. So I started checking the list: 12 subsection 3, 12 subsection 4, 12 subsection 5, 12 subsection 6, like that. Up to 12 subsection 14 I have seen. But my service is not getting covered anywhere. Audit services is not getting covered anywhere. Starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14, audit services is not getting covered anywhere. Now what I should do? Since your service is not getting covered anywhere, come to the default provision, and default provision will become applicable for you. Come to the default provision will become applicable for you. So this is what the structure of section number 12. So section number 12 will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of supply of services when the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient both are in India. And what is that structure? 12 subsection 2 is a default provision. So which means that whenever you are making a supply of service, first come to 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14, check whether any such a subsection is there which is covering your service, apply the provisions of that subsection for determining place of supply. In case if your service is not getting covered anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14, then you have to come to the default provision 12 subsection 2. According to that, you have to determine the place of supply. Understood? Clear? Right. So let us try to proceed further now. So now what we will try to do is, we'll start from 12 subsection 3. Each subsection we will take, each kind of specific service we will see, and how to determine the place of supply we'll try to revise. Right. So first I will come to 12 subsection 3. So 12 subsection 3 is talking about services in relation to an immovable property. Regarding which services 12 subsection 3 is talking about? Services in relation to an immovable property. So services in relation to immovable property. Sir, what do you mean by services in relation to immovable property? Let us say, for example, architect services. Architect is providing a building plan. That is a service in relation to immovable property. Interior decorator. That is also a service in relation to immovable property. Construction services. It is also a service in relation to an immovable property. A real estate agent. It is also a service in relation to immovable property. So like this, bunch of services will come. Services which are in relation to an immovable property. Or lodging accommodation in a hotel, boat, or a vessel. Not just services in relation to immovable property. If you are providing the services, let us say if I am an hotel, if I am providing the services in relation to an accommodation in a hotel or boat, even houseboats and all will be there. If you go to the states like Kerala and all, in the inland waterways, there will be houseboat. So that is also getting covered here. Or accommodation in a vessel. So even if you go and travel in a vessel, like there's a cruise ships and all will be there, where you can go and enjoy the accommodation. So accommodation services and services in relation to immovable property will get covered under 12 subsection 3. What will get covered under 12 subsection 3? Accommodation services and all kind of services in relation to an immovable property. That will get covered under 12 subsection 3. How to determine the place of supply? So if you see here, applicability, it applies to all the services directly related to immovable property, like architect, interior decorators, surveyors, real estate agents, etc. And it also includes granting rights to use immovable property. When I say granting rights to use immovable property, renting of immovable property, leasing of immovable property also will get covered here. And it includes lodging services, hotels, inn, guest house, houseboats, campsites, vessels. It also includes accommodation services for organizing events. Let us say, for example, I have a convention hall. I'm giving that convention hall on rent so that people can come and celebrate their weddings and other functions. For that, I will get the money. So that also will fall under 12 subsection 3 because it is also an accommodation service in an immovable property. and any ancillary services, any supporting services to the above. So all of that will get covered under 12 subsection 3. Now, how to determine the place of supply? How to determine place of supply? So what 12 subsection 3 says is, generally for all these services in relation to immobile property or lodging or accommodation services, if immobile property is located in India, location or intended location of such immobile property will become place of supply. Wherever that immobile property is located or wherever that immobile property is intended to be located, that will become the place of supply. Let us say I'm an architect in Chennai. So there is a recipient who is in Hyderabad. So he asked me to provide a building plan for building which is supposed to be constructed in Bangalore. Which is supposed to be constructed in Bangalore. So what will be the place of supply? Location wherever that immobile property is intended to be located. What is it? Bangalore, which is Karnataka state. Place of supply will become Karnataka. So in case of all these services, if the immobile property located or intended to be located in India, the place of supply will become that location of immobile property. Sir, what if the property is supposed to be located outside of India? What if the immobile property is supposed to be located outside of India? Let us say, for example, I'm an architect in Chennai. There is a recipient who is in Bangalore. So both the location and both the recipient and supplier both are in India. So 12 will become applicable. So this recipient has came to me and asked me, sir, I want a building plan. I want you to draw a plan for the construction of my building. And where I want to construct that building is in US. I have a piece of land. There I want to construct the building. So you please give me a building plan. So I gave a building plan for the construction of a building which is going to be located at US. Sir, what if the immobile property is located outside of India? Then location of immobile property is not a place of supply. Location of recipient will become the place of supply. What will become the place of supply? Location of recipient will become the place of supply. So location of recipient is in Bangalore, Karnataka will become the place of supply. Sir, what if this immobile property is not in US? This immobile property is supposed to be constructed in Delhi. Then what will be the place of supply? Location of immobile property, which is Delhi here. The place of supply will become Delhi. Okay, so you have to remember this, my dear students. So how to determine place of supply in case of services related to immobile property? If the immobile property is located in India, the place of supply is in India. If the immobile property is located outside of India, location of recipient. Sorry, once again, if I repeat it, if the immobile property is located in India, location of the immobile property. If the immobile property is located or intended to be located outside of India, the location of the recipient will become the place of supply. Understood? Now, there are few circumstances, there are few special cases which we need to learn here. See, sometimes what will happen is the place of supply can fall in multiple states. The place of supply can fall in multiple states. Let us say, for example, if I'm going to Taj Hotel, and with the Taj Hotel, I'm booking an accommodation. So for that accommodation, I'm paying some 50,000 rupees. For that 50,000 rupees, this Taj Hotel is going to provide me accommodation, and they are going to provide me accommodation. For this 50,000, I'm going for let us say, for example, for North India trip, I'm going. So for this 50,000 rupees, they will give me accommodation at Jaipur also, at the Taj Hotel chain. And also at the same time, they will also give me, I will also go to, let us say, for example, I'm going to Delhi as well. In Delhi also, they will give me accommodation. So I'm paying them 50,000 rupees. For that, Taj Hotel will give me accommodation services. And for a few days, I'm going to stay in Jaipur. For a few days, I'm going to stay at Delhi. For a single price, I am doing it. So now what will be the place of supply? Generally, location wherever that hotel is located. But here the hotels are spread, the hotels wherever I am going to get the accommodation, that is spread across 2 states, sir. Now how to determine place of supply? Can I consider place of supply as only Jaipur, Rajasthan? Can I consider only place of supply as Delhi? No. Because the revenue has to go to both the state governments, no. So I have to apportion. This 50,000 I have to apportion. Sir, on what basis I have to apportion? First thing what you have to do is you have to go and check the contract or agreement. If in the contract or agreement there is already a bifurcation given, let us say, for example, in the contract it was written, sir, 50% is for Jaipur, 50% is for Delhi. We will follow whatever has been given in the contract or agreement. But in case if the contract or agreement does not provide any bifurcation, in the contract they have told that 50,000 rupees, for this we will give you accommodation at 2 places. Bifurcation they have not provided in the contract or agreement. Then how to determine place of supply? Then there is one rule. That rule says that you have to bifurcate the value on the basis of number of nights. So if you see here, on the basis of number of nights stayed in such property, on the basis of number of nights, you have to bifurcate the value. Let us say, for example, 2 nights I'm staying in Jaipur, 3 nights I'm staying in Delhi. So now I have to divide this ratio of divide this 50,000 in the ratio of 2:3. So I will get 20,000 for Jaipur, 30,000 for Delhi. So for 20,000 value of supply, the place of supply is Rajasthan. For another 30,000 value, the place of supply is going to be Delhi. Understood? Clear, everyone? Right. So like this, if the accommodation you are getting at multiple places, this is how you are required to divide it. See, sometimes what will happen is a single immobile property might be spread across multiple states. A single immobile property might be spread across multiple states. Let us say, for example, I'm a supplier, I'm owning a piece of land, a very big land is there, some 5-6 acres of land is there, which is a close to hill station. This I generally rent it out for marriage purposes. If someone wants to come into the destination wedding and all, this I will give it on rent. So one day, one recipient has come to me and he wanted to celebrate his destination wedding there. He asked me to rent out this property. Okay, I rented out this property for 2 lakh rupees. Now, what is the place of supply location of the immobile property? Sir, wherever this immobile property, wherever this land is located, that will become place of supply. But the problem is this land is spread across 2 states. This land is in the border where it is spread across 2 states. Some part of the land is there in Karnataka, some part of the land is there in Tamil Nadu. A single land is spread across multiple states. Possible or not? It is quite possible. A single land might be spread across multiple states. Sir, now what will be the place of supply? Because this land is spread across multiple states. So if it is located in single state, I would have told that state. But this single land is spread across multiple states. What will be the place of supply? So here also you are required to bifurcate. Sir, how you have to bifurcate? If there is first here also you have to go and refer to the contract. If in the contract they have given some bifurcation, follow that. In the contract or agreement, if they have not provided for any explicit bifurcation, then what I am supposed to do? You have to divide it on the basis of area of that immobile property. You have to divide it on the basis of area of immobile property. Let us say entire area is 5 CR. Out of that, some 5 acres of land is there. Out of that, 3 acres is in Karnataka, 2 acres is in Tamil Nadu. So in the ratio of 3:2, you have to divide that value and accordingly you have to determine place of supply. So if you do that in the 3:2 ratio, so it will become something around 1,20,000 will be, for 1,20,000 the place of supply is Karnataka, for another 80,000 the place of supply is going to be Tamil Nadu. Understood? Next, one more case where there will be a trouble is houseboats. Let us say houseboats. If you are taking an accommodation in a houseboat, now this houseboat will not remain constant. This houseboat will travel across your duration. So for example, you are staying in that houseboat for 2 days. Now for that 2 days, that houseboat will not remain there itself. So in India, we have inland waterways, no? So in that inland waterways, it will travel in the inland waterways between Karnataka and Kerala. So now you have stayed in this houseboat, but this houseboat has not remained constant. It has traveled multiple states during your accommodation. Now, how to determine the place of supply, sir? Here also check for contract or agreement. In case if the contract or agreement is not there, then how I have to bifurcate? Then they say that in that cases, you have to check, you have to divide it on the basis of time spent by boat or vessel in each state or union territory on the basis of declaration made by the service provider. So that service provider will give a declaration, sir, for this accommodation, this much time I have spent it here, these many hours we have spent in this state, these many hours we have spent in state. Like that, he will give a declaration. According to that time spent, you have to bifurcate the value. Understood? So this is what regarding 12 subsection 3, which is talking about services in relation to an immobile property or lodging or accommodation services in hotel, boat, vessel, etc. Thereafter, so 12 subsection 3 we have completed. Now coming to 12 subsection 4. So 12 subsection 4 is a very straightforward provision which is covering the services like restaurant, catering service, personal grooming service, fitness, beauty, healthcare services, including cosmetic and plastic surgery. All will get covered here for all these services. So what and all are getting covered under 12 subsection 4? So these are basically performance based services on a person. You are performing some services on a person. So what will get covered here? Restaurant services, catering services, personal grooming services, fitness services, beauty, health services, including cosmetic and plastic surgery. What will be the place of supply? Place of supply will be location wherever such services are actually performed. Wherever that services are getting performed, that will become place of supply. Let us say, for example, I am a person from Chennai. I went to Mumbai. At the Mumbai, I have went to a restaurant. At that restaurant, I have had the services. So what will be the place of supply? The place wherever that service is performed. Where that service is performed, that restaurant service has been performed in Mumbai. So place of supply will become Mumbai. So let us say I traveled to some another location, got a haircut there. So what will be place of supply? Wherever that service is actually performed. So that hairstylist will do the performance of that service on me, no? So wherever that service is getting performed, that will become the place of supply. Same thing will become applicable for fitness, beauty, healthcare services. Everything will get covered here. Cosmetic or plastic surgery, etc. So this is what regarding 12 subsection 4. Then we have 12 subsection 5. 12 subsection 5 will talk about training and performance appraisal services. In case if you are providing any training, let us say for example you are a motivational speaker, you are going and conducting a motivational session, motivational training you are doing, or you are doing performance appraisal. Some big corporates will recruit you for doing performance appraisal, whether their employees are performing as expected or not, whether they are eligible for increment or not. So like that you are supposed to go into the performance appraisal. So in case if you are a supplier providing the services of training and performance appraisal services, sir, how to determine place of supply? Very simple. It depends on the location. It depends on what is your status of the recipient. recipient. If the recipient is a registered person, that means if it is a B2B supply, always and always location of recipient. Always and always location of recipient. In case if it is a B2C supply, in case if you are a motivational speaker and you are conducting one open seminar where everybody, where for example I'm conducting a motivational session for students. I have announced one city, let us say for example in Delhi I'm going to conduct one motivational session for all the students. Now students will purchase a ticket and students will pay me the fee and come and attend that motivation class. So here my location, my recipients are unregistered person. No, in case if it is a B2C supply, if the recipient is unregistered, the place of supply is wherever that service is actually performed, wherever you are providing the training services. I am providing that training in Delhi, the place of supply will become Delhi. On the other hand, if the company, if some registered company is there, that company has approached me and asked me, sir, you please come and do the motivational training session for our employees. So there the recipient is registered person, recipient is company, it is a B2B supply. What will be the place of supply? Location of recipient. So let me give you one example here with the examples. This chapter, no, the more you try to refer to some common examples, you will get better clarity. Let us say I'm a motivational speaker, as I have told. I am located in Hyderabad. Okay, so I am providing. One day a company has approached me. That company is in Delhi. Now this company is celebrating a event. So they are celebrating some 25th anniversary. They have called all their employees to Goa. They have asked me to come to Goa and do one hour of deliveries, 1 hour delivery of motivational session. So recipient is registered. Location of the recipient is Delhi actually. I am going and performing the training at Goa. What will be place of supply? Since it is a B2B supply, where you are performing that service doesn't matter. Always location of recipient. Sir, what is location of recipient? Delhi. So place of supply will be Delhi. Location of the supplier, Hyderabad. Interstate supply, IGST. On the other hand, as you take the other example I have given, I'm a motivational speaker. I'm conducting one session for students and all. Sir, where you are conducting that session? Let us say I'm at Hyderabad. So I'm calling at Hyderabad only. At Hyderabad, I'm going to conduct one motivational session where the students can come and participate in that. So now from the students, I'm collecting the fees. And I'm conducting a motivational session, training service I'm providing. So you tell me, what is the status of my recipients here? Recipients are unregistered. Let us say from each student I'm collecting 10,000 rupees. What GST I have to charge? So since it is a B2C supply, training and performance appraisal services, location wherever that service is performed, where I am performing that training, Hyderabad. So what will be place of supply? Hyderabad. What is the location of supplier? Hyderabad. Both are falling in same state, which is intrastate. So on this 10,000, what will be levied? CGST, SGST will be levied. Clear? Able to understand? So this is what regarding 12 subsection 5. So we have covered 12 subsection 3, 12 subsection 4, 12 subsection 5. What does 12 subsection 3 will talk about? Services in relation to immobile property, lodging or accommodation services. 12 subsection 4, performance based services on person. 12 subsection 5, training and performance appraisal services. Then we have 12 subsection 6, which is talking about how to determine place of supply in case of services related to admission to event, amusement park or other places. Like you are going to the amusement park, or you are conducting an event, music event, concerts or award function. So by way of they will sell you tickets and they will allow you access to that event, or they will sell you tickets and they will give you admission to the amusement park. Sir, for that services, what will be place of supply? Very straightforward. Wherever that amusement park is located or wherever that event is held, that will become the place of supply. In case of admission to events or amusement parks or other places, what is the place of supply, sir? The place of supply will be wherever that event is held or wherever that amusement park is located. That will become the place of supply. Sir, what will get covered under here? The bunch of services will get covered here. It could be a sporting event, cultural event, educational event. So let me write it here. Sporting event, cultural event, educational event, scientific event, artistic event, entertainment event, or it could be admission to amusement parks or any other ancillary services to the above. Next. Sir, organization of events. Sir, what is this event organization? Nothing but event management services. So for event management services, in case if someone is providing the event management services, including sponsorship, even sponsorship also will get covered here. So in case if you are an event organizer, you are providing event organizing services to your recipients, including sponsorship, etc. What will be the place of supply? So here also they have told that it is depending on the status of your recipient. If your recipient is B2, are you making a B2B supply? Are you making a B2C supply? So in case if you are providing event organizing services to a registered recipient, if your recipient is also registered, location of recipient. Wherever event is held doesn't matter. If it is a B2B supply, if you are organizing the event for a recipient, whether that event is held within India, outside of India, doesn't matter. Always location of recipient will become the place of supply. On the other hand, if your recipient is an unregistered person, if your recipient is an unregistered person, let us say for example, I'm an unregistered person. There is a person who is an unregistered person. He wanted to he is celebrating his wedding. Okay, so now he approached one event organizer to do the event organizing of his wedding. Okay, so here the recipient is unregistered person, whereas supplier will be registered person. So now what will happen in this case? They say that, let us say this event is a destination wedding. This destination wedding is supposed to happen at Jaipur. This destination wedding is supposed to happen at Jaipur. So what will be place of supply? Since it is a B2C supply, they say that wherever the event is held, that means where the event is happening, at Jaipur event is happening. So place of supply will be what? Jaipur, that is Rajasthan. Sir, what if the event is held outside of India? Let us say for example, this boy is a very rich person. He wants to have his wedding performed at Paris. At Paris, he wants to have his wedding. For that, this event organizer is organizing the event. Sir, what will be place of supply, sir? Here, the place of supply is going to be the location of recipient. If the event is held outside of India, location of recipient. Let us say this recipient belongs to Hyderabad. So, place of supply will be Hyderabad. Able to understand? So, once again, if I have to summarize this entire discussion, in case if you are providing event organizing services to a recipient who is registered person, if you are making a B2B supply, if you are providing event organizing services to a registered recipient, it doesn't matter where the event is happening, always location of the recipient. Always location of the recipient. In case if the recipient is unregistered person, to such an unregistered person, if you are providing event organizing services, then we need to check where the event is getting performed. If the event is happening in India, location where the event is happening. If the event is supposed to happen outside of India, location of the recipient. But this thing we need not check whether the event is happening within India, outside of India. That we need not check in case if the recipient is registered. Why? Because always location of the recipient. Now, if you come to this case, let us say, sir, I am providing service to unregistered person and that event is happening in India. But what if the event is happening at multiple places? If I am providing services to a recipient who is an unregistered person and I am supposed to provide event organizing, let us say wedding services only you take, wedding event I am organizing. Now, as a part of that wedding, two events have to happen. One event has to happen at Jaipur, another event has to happen at, let us say, Ooty. One event, 2 days or two events are happening. One event is required to happen at Jaipur and another event will happen at Ooty. Okay, so now I am providing event organizing services. My recipient is unregistered person. So event is happening within India, wherever the event is taking place. But here the events are happening at two places, sir. Events are happening at two places, sir. How to determine place of supply? Both will fall under place of supply, but you have to bifurcate the value. Sir, how we will bifurcate the value? Once again, here also you refer to contract or agreement. If in the contract or agreement some form of bifurcation has been given, follow it. Sir, if in the contract or agreement nothing has been specified, sir, then if in the contract or agreement nothing has been specified, what I should do? Apply rule 5. And what rule 5 says is generally accepted accounting principle. You follow generally accepted accounting principle. According to some accepted accounting standards, you will bifurcate that. No. So follow some generally accepted accounting standards, and according to that generally accepted accounting principle, you bifurcate the value. Generally in the expense ratio, we will bifurcate. So what generally accepted accounting principle says is expense ratio. In the expense ratio, you will bifurcate it. You don't write all that expense ratio in the exam. Just to say that as per generally accepted accounting principles, we have to bifurcate the value. This much you are required to write it. Understood? So this is what regarding 12 subsection 7. So let us have a quick recap, guys. What and all we have covered? 12 subsection 3, services in relation to immobile property, lodging or accommodation. 12 subsection 4, performance based services. 12 subsection 5, training and performance appraisal services. 12 subsection 6, services by way of admission to events or amusement parks or other places. 12 subsection 7, organization of events. Now we are coming to 12 subsection 8. So 12 subsection 8, 12 subsection 9. Both are relating to transportation. 12 subsection 8 will talk about how to determine the place of supply in case of transportation of goods, whereas 12 subsection 9 will talk about how to determine place of supply in case of passenger transportation services. So 12 subsection 7, 12 subsection 8, 12 subsection 9, both are talking about transportation related services. 12 subsection 8 will talk about goods transportation services, how to determine place of supply, whereas 12 subsection 9 will talk about passenger transportation services and how to determine the place of supply. So first I will talk about transportation of goods under 12 subsection 8. Transportation of goods, how to determine the place of supply. Very simple. Here also it depends on status of the recipient. If the recipient is registered, location of the recipient always. In case of transportation of goods, services, if the recipient is registered person, always location of recipient. In case if the recipient is unregistered person, location where the goods are handed over for transportation. Location where the goods are handed over for transportation. Very simple. Let us say there is a DTDC, courier agency is there. You are a student. You are an unregistered person. So let us say you are staying at Hyderabad. Now you wanted to go to some other place. So you are having some books. Let us say you came to Hyderabad for preparation. After your preparation is over, you want to go back to your place. So now you want to transport your books from Hyderabad to, let us say, Vizag. Okay, so now you went to DTDC office, which is in Hyderabad, and you handed over the goods, you handed over your books for the purpose of transportation to DTDC Hyderabad office. Now DTDC is providing you the services of transportation of goods. So this is a service of transportation of goods. Recipient is unregistered person. So what is place of supply? Location wherever you are handing over the goods for transportation, where you are going and handing over the goods for transportation at Hyderabad office. So you went to Hyderabad DTDC office and you gave them, you handed over your books for transportation where at Hyderabad. So what will become place of supply? Hyderabad once again. What is location of supplier? Hyderabad. Both are falling within same state. So it is an intra-state. What will be levied on that? CGST, SGST will be levied on it. Understood? That's all. What if the recipient is registered person? In case if you are providing transportation of goods for a registered person, always location of the recipient. We will check where the goods are handed over for transportation only in the case if the recipient is unregistered person. Okay, clear? Next. Coming to the next point. Passenger transportation services. Sir, how to determine place of supply in case of passenger transportation services? Very simple only. So they say that here also it depends on location of recipient. What is the status of the recipient? If the recipient is a registered person, always location of the recipient. If the recipient is a registered person, always location of the recipient will become the place of supply. In case if the recipient is unregistered person, location where the passenger embarks on the conveyance. Location where the passenger embarks on the conveyance. Sir, what is it? Let us say, for example, I'm a business person. I'm a registered person. Okay, so I'm traveling. Let us say I'm traveling. There is an airline company, Indigo Airlines is there. Let us say at Mumbai. So I'm a registered person. I'm also registered at Mumbai. So I'm traveling from Mumbai to Delhi. I'm traveling from Mumbai to Delhi. So with that, I have booked a Indigo Airlines ticket. So Indigo Airlines is providing a services of passenger transportation. What is place of supply? Since the recipient is registered, always location of the recipient only. Where you are traveling, where you are boarding, where you are getting, where you are stopping your journey, all that doesn't matter. So in case if the recipient of passenger transportation services is a registered person, always location of recipient. So here location of recipient will become Mumbai. Place of supply is also Mumbai. Location of recipient is also Mumbai. So sorry, location of the supplier is also Mumbai. Place of supply is also Mumbai. It will be an intrastate supply. Sir, what if I'm an unregistered person? What if I'm an unregistered person? If I'm going to Indigo Airlines and if I'm booking a flight whereby I'm traveling from Mumbai to Delhi, what will be place of supply? Since the recipient is unregistered, the place where the passenger is embarking, where you are boarding onto that conveyance, you are boarding onto the conveyance at Mumbai. So Mumbai will become the place of supply. Understood? And one more small point I have to keep it here. You have to understand it here. So in case of passenger transportation services, even though you have booked a round trip, to journey and from journey, both will be treated as two separate journeys. Let us say you booked a round trip where you will go from Mumbai to Delhi. You have some urgent work. By night, you will return from Delhi to Mumbai back. So generally, you book a round trip. So even though you have booked a round trip, two journeys will be treated as separate. So here also, let us say, for example, you have booked a round trip where you will go in the morning from Mumbai to Delhi and you will come back from Delhi to Mumbai at the evening. Round trip you have booked, but both journeys will be treated as separate journeys. Now, if you take this registered person, what will be the place of supply from Mumbai to Delhi trip? Mumbai only, location of the recipient. What will be the place of supply for a Delhi to Mumbai journey? Once again, Mumbai only. Why? Because here the recipient is registered person. Always location of the recipient will become place of supply. Where you are traveling, where you are boarding, where you are getting down, all that doesn't matter. But here, if you take Mumbai to Delhi trip, if the recipient is unregistered person, what is place of supply for here? For Mumbai to Delhi journey, place of supply will be Mumbai. For return journey, Delhi to Mumbai, what will be place of supply? Place of supply will be Delhi. Why? Because here recipient is unregistered person. The place where you are embarking on the conveyance, that will become the place of supply. So for recipient is, if recipient is unregistered, if recipient is registered person, where he is embarking doesn't matter only. Why? Because always location of the recipient will become the place of supply. Understood? Clear? And one more thing is also there. Sometimes the passenger transportation service will be in the form of right to passage for future use and point of boarding not known at the time of issue of passage. So yeah, let us try to have a look at it. Sometimes they will provide services where they will give you right to passage in the future. The passenger transportation service will be in the form of right of issuing the passage, which you can use it in the future where boarding time is not known. Sir, what is it? Let us say, for example, pass. Some railway companies and all, they will give you pass. So what they will do is they will issue one pass. That pass you can use it for traveling from anywhere to anywhere. That pass you can use it from traveling to anywhere. So like that, sometimes they will also sell you some special tickets and all, where 1 year validity will be given. Using that ticket you can travel from anywhere to anywhere. So they are not immediately providing passenger transportation services, they are issuing a right to passage for future use. And what will be the point of boarding, it will not be known at the time of issuing that passage, like for example issuance of the pass and all. So you can use it at a future date. From wherever you want you can board, wherever you want to get down you can get down. So like that, this is also a passenger transportation service. But here, instead of providing direct passenger transportation services, they are giving you right to passage in the future. So in those cases, how to determine place of supply? Actually, for issue of right to passage for future use, this will get governed under default rule. So it will not fall under 12 subsection 9. It will go to default rule. Issue of right of passage will fall under default rule. But anyhow, what is the default rule? Default rule also says if the location of the recipient is registered, location of the recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, if the location of recipient, if the address of recipient is available, location of the recipient. If the location of the recipient is not available, then the location of supplier. Anyhow, this I am going to explain in 12 subsection 2 default provision. Now what you remember is, if it is a direct passenger transportation services, 12 subsection 9. On the other hand, if it is a right to passage for future use where point of boarding is not known, then remember that it will go to default provision. Sir, what is default provision saying? That we will come to that later. So anyhow, what I have done is the default provision also I have given it here itself. For your easy reference, I have given that default provision here itself. But what is that default provision? We will try to learn it once we complete all the specific cases. So till 12 subsection 9 we have covered. So 8 and 9. 8 is talking about transportation of goods. 9 is talking about passenger transportation services. Next, 12 subsection 10, which is talking about supply of services on board deck conveyance. So guys, if you remember 10 subsection 1 clause E, we have seen how to determine place of supply in case of supply of goods on board deck conveyance. If the goods are getting supplied on board deck conveyance, how to determine place of supply? That's what we have covered under 10 subsection 1 clause E. But in case if the services are supplied on board deck conveyance, then how to determine the place of supply? Sir, what do you mean by services being provided on board deck conveyance? Let us say, for example, you have boarded a flight. You are getting bored. You wanted to watch a movie. Generally, this will be available in the business class flights and all. So you want to watch a movie. So now what they will do is, in front of you there will be one screen. So in that, if you want to watch a movie, they will ask you to pay some money, some 49 rupees, 99 rupees you are required to pay to watch a movie. So they are providing the services to you for watching a movie when you are boarding a conveyance, when you are traveling during your mid journey, they are providing you that services of access to movie. Sir, what will be place of supply? In case of goods, what I have told, in case of goods supplied on board deck conveyance, I told that wherever that goods are taken on board deck conveyance, that will become place of supply. Sir, what about services, sir? In case of services, they say that under 12 subsection 10, the place of supply is the first scheduled point of departure of that conveyance. So what they are saying, the place of supply will be first scheduled point of departure. Sir, what is first scheduled point of departure? Let us say there is a flight which is coming from, which is started at Chennai. It will go up to Delhi. It will go up to Delhi. In between, one stop is there at Mumbai. At Mumbai, you are a passenger. You have boarded this flight. Now from Mumbai to Delhi, you are going. During that journey, you are getting bored. You wanted to watch a movie. So you have availed the services during this journey from Mumbai to Delhi, whatever journey is there, during that you have availed the services. So services are supplied on board deck conveyance. Sir, what is place of supply? They say place of supply is the first scheduled point of departure. What is the first scheduled point of departure of this aircraft? So first scheduled point of departure is Chennai, not where you have boarded. They're not saying not where you have boarded. The first scheduled point of departure. Sir, what is the first scheduled point of departure? Chennai is the first scheduled point of departure. So that will become Tamil Nadu. Place of supply will become Tamil Nadu. Understood? Clear? Right. So this is what regarding 12 subsection 10. 12 subsection 11, I will come back to that later because that requires some discussion. But before that, we have 12 subsection 12, 12 subsection 13, 12 subsection 14. Some simple provisions are there that we'll try to cover it. Thereafter, I will come to 12 subsection 11, telecommunication services. Right. So what does 12 subsection 12 talk about? 12 subsection 12 will cover financial and stockbroking services. How to determine the place of supply in case of financial and stockbroking services? Very simple. In case if the location of the recipient is available as per the supplier's records, location of the recipient. Sir, what if location of recipient is not available? Then the location of the supplier. Simple rule you have to remember. If the location of the recipient is available, location of the recipient. If the location of the recipient is not available, then the location of the supplier will become place of supply. Which section says that? 12 subsection 12 says that. So what is 12 subsection 12 talking about? Financial and stockbroking services. Next, 12 subsection 13, insurance services. So in case if you are providing insurance services, what will be place of supply? It is, I will say, it is very much similar to default rule only. It is similar to not similar. It is nothing but default rule only. So, but anyhow, if I have to say it, you can remember it that way. For insurance services, even though they have given separate clause, for insurance services, even though they have given a separate subsection, but it is not a separate provision. It is once again replication of default provision only. But in fact, what 12 subsection 13 says is, if the recipient is registered, location of the recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, location of the recipient. If address is available. If address is not available in the supplier's records, then the location of the supplier, which is very similar to default rule. Even default rule also says the same thing. So you just remember it as, for insurance services, it will be default provision only. If the recipient is registered, location of the recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, then we have to check whether recipient address is available. If the recipient's address is available, location of recipient. If the recipient's address is not available, then the location of the supplier. Clear? Next, we have 12 subsection 14. So what is 12 subsection 14 talking about? How to determine the place of supply in case of advertisement services provided to the government. So 12 subsection 14 will not talk about all advertisement services, my dear students. This is where one more common mistake which many students will think. The moment they find advertisement services, they will come to 12 subsection 14. No. 12 subsection 14 will not talk about all kinds of advertisement services. Then which kind of advertisement services 12 subsection 14 will cover? 12 subsection 14 will cover only advertisement services when they are provided to government. 12 subsection 14 only will talk about advertisement services when provided to government. If you are providing advertisement services to others, it will not fall under 12 subsection 14. It will go to default provision. If I'm an advertising agency, if I'm providing an advertising services to a corporate company, it will not fall anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14. It has to go to default provision. Okay, so 12 subsection 14 only will cover advertisement services when provided to the government. So what does this 12 subsection 14 say? When advertisement services are provided to central government, state government or statutory body, local authority meant for state or union territory identified in a contract or agreement. So you have to place of supply will be each of the state or union territory where the advertisement is run, displayed or broadcasted or disseminated. Let us say you are providing advertisement services to central government. When I am providing advertisement services to central government, that advertisement will not be displayed or distributed at one state. So that advertisement will be displayed. Let us say, for example, if the central government is doing television advertisement, that advertisement will be seen by people in all over the country. So what they are saying is, in that cases, the place of supply is not just one single state. Wherever that advertisement is getting disseminated, wherever that advertisement is getting displayed, wherever that advertisement is getting distributed, so place of supply will be in each of that state or union territory wherever that advertisement is getting disseminated. So the value of such supply is specific. Sir, how to determine value? Okay, sir. Let us say one advertising agency is providing 10 lakhs worth of services to central government. Now that advertisement will be displayed in multiple states and union territory. So you told that the place of supply will be in each state or union territory wherever that advertisement is getting disseminated. But how to bifurcate the value, sir? How to bifurcate the value, sir? It will be bifurcated in terms of the contract or agreement. You have to refer to contract or agreement. If in the contract or agreement, if they have identified, sir, for this state this much, for this state this much, for this state this much, then according to that bifurcation, you have to determine the place of supply. Sir, in case if the contract or agreement is missing, in case if the contract or agreement bifurcation is not given, for each state or union territory, how much is the amount? That bifurcation is not given. Only they have mentioned 10 lakhs total amount. Then how to bifurcate? There are different rules here. There are rules here. According to that rules, you have to divide. But that rules you are not required to learn it at the CA inter level. That rules we will learn it at the CA final level. So just for 12 subsection 14 at the CA inter level, I want you to remember only one thing. In case if the advertisement services are provided to government where it is getting disseminated in more than one state or union territory, the place of supply will be in each that state or union territory. How to bifurcate the value, sir? If first you have to refer to contract or agreement. If the contract or agreement has clearly mentioned it, in that according to that contract or agreement, we will bifurcate. What if the contract or agreement is silent on the bifurcation? There are some rules. According to that rules, you have to apportion it. Sir, what are that rules? No need to learn it at the CA inter level. That we will learn it at the CA final level. Okay, so that's what regarding 12 subsection 12, 12 subsection 13, 12 subsection 14. Now we have 12 subsection 11, which is talking about telecommunication services. We have 12 subsection 11, which is talking about telecommunication services. Sir, how to determine the place of supply in case of telecommunication services? How to determine the place of supply in case of telecommunication services? So when I say telecommunication services, so many number of services will get covered here. When we say telecommunication services, there are so many kind of services will come into your picture. It will take into its perspective this landline is a telecommunication service. Wi-Fi is a telecommunication service. The mobile prepaid services, postpaid services, that is also telecommunication service. And also there will be something called circuits, leased circuits, like that. There will be some services which corporates will get, leased circuits, that is also a kind of telecommunication service. Cable TV services, antenna services, TV channels related subscription, that is also a telecommunication service. So when I say telecommunication service, it is a very broader term. It includes various kind of services which we use it as a part of our day-to-day life. So now they have determined how to determine place of supply in case of telecommunication services. Let us try to understand it. First one, in case of fixed telecommunication line, nothing but landline, or leased circuits, or internet leased circuits, or cable or dish antenna. For these kind of telecommunication services, what will be place of supply? So for these kind of telecommunication service which require a physical installation, actually all this will require physical installation. Like let us say for example, you want a landline connection in your home. What will happen? The person will come and install the landline phone, no landline connection and all, he will install it, right? So like this, these are a bunch of services which require physical installation. So in case of fixed telecommunication line, or leased circuits, or internet leased circuits, cable or dish antenna, in all those cases, what will be place of supply? They have simply told that location wherever the telecommunication line, or wherever that leased circuit or cable connection or dish antenna is installed. Wherever that is installed, the place of installation will become the place of supply. But here, in case of leased circuit, sometimes what will happen is this leased circuit will be spread across multiple states. Let us say there is one company which is getting a leased circuit. Leased circuit means a closed telecommunication line. So they are having an head office at Delhi and they have a branch office in Pune. Now all these offices are required to be connected. They need one common server and all. So they install leased circuit. They will have one point here. They will have a leased circuit point in Delhi and they will have a leased circuit point in Pune. They will have a leased circuit point in Pune. So like the 2 points are there. These 2 points will be connected by way of a circuit. So now what is place of supply? I told that wherever that things are installed. But here it is getting installed in 2 states. So one point is there in Delhi, one point is there in Pune. Sir, what is place of supply? Place of supply will be both. Place of supply will come in Delhi also. Place of supply will come in Maharashtra also. On what ratio I have to decide, sir? On the basis of number of points in each state or union territory. So in Delhi, I have 1 point. In Maharashtra, I have 1 point. Let us say total consideration I am getting for this is 10 lakh rupees. So in which ratio I have to divide? In 1:1 ratio. Why? Because on the basis of number of points, I have 1 point in Delhi, 1 point in Maharashtra. So in the 1:1 ratio. So 5 lakhs place of supply will be Delhi, 5 lakhs place of supply will be Maharashtra. Now let me change the facts here. In between, I have one more office in Mumbai also. Mumbai also I have one office. Pune also I have one office. For Mumbai also, Mumbai office also I want to get it connected. So I have established one more point here, one more circuit point here. So I have one circuit point in Delhi, one circuit point in Mumbai, one circuit point in Pune. For this, let us say I am collecting total of 10 lakh rupees. Now, what is place of supply? So here we have points in Delhi also. We have points in Maharashtra also. But here in Maharashtra, I have 2 points. In Maharashtra, I have 2 points. So I will divide it in the, why? Because Mumbai, Pune both are belonging to Maharashtra. So in Delhi, I have 1 point. In Maharashtra, I have 2 points. This entire 10 lakh rupees, I have to divide it in the ratio of 1:2. Clear? Able to understand? Comfortable? Right. So this is what you will be able to find it at the bottom. In case if it is installed in more than one state or union territory, how you are supposed to determine the place of supply. So this is what regarding fixed telecommunication line, leased circuits, internet leased circuits, cable or dish antenna. Then comes next postpaid services. Sir, if I am getting postpaid mobile connection, if I'm getting postpaid mobile connection and internet services, what will be place of supply? Very simply, what they say is location of the billing address of the recipient. Recipient will give you billing address, no, whenever he gets that postpaid connection from you, he will give you his billing address. So whatever that billing address of the recipient is available in the supplier's records, that will become the place of supply. Sir, what if address is not available? In case of postpaid connection, if the recipient has not given his address, what will be place of supply? Location of the supplier will become the place of supply. Location of supplier is going to become the place of supply. So in case of postpaid mobile connection, location of billing address of the recipient available in the supplier's records. In case if the billing address is not available in the supplier's records, then the location of the supplier will become place of supply. Sir, what if it is a prepaid mobile connection, internet service and DTH services? What if it is a prepaid mobile connection service, prepaid internet services, or prepaid DTH services? So now these prepaid services can be provided by way of multiple mechanisms. So traditionally, what used to happen is this telecommunication company will sell that, will provide that services to an agent, to a selling agent, reseller, distributor of SIM cards. Like for example, you used to find traditionally there used to be one shop in your street where they will have that recharge coupons or devices they will have. So first company will supply, telecommunication company will supply that to agents. For that transaction, what is place of supply? Address of the selling agent, reseller, distributor at the time of supply. So whatever is the address of the selling agent, whatever is the reseller, or whatever is the address of the reseller, or whatever is the address of the distributor, that will become the place of supply. Now that agents will provide the services to final subscriber. No, if you are a final subscriber, let us say for example you want a recharge coupon. Traditionally we used to do, now it is not happening. What is now happening, that I will come back to this point. Here it is there. But traditionally when you used to be a kid, your mom or dad, they will ask you to go to some local shop and they will ask you to get some voucher, recharge coupon you have to bring. So you have to bring that recharge coupon, you have to scratch it on that code will be there, you have to enter that code, you will get the recharge. So that is the service provided to a final consumer. So in case of service provided by any person to the final subscriber, what is the place of supply for that transaction? Location where such a prepayment is received. You will go and get that you will go and make the prepayment and get the coupon. No, so wherever you are going and doing that prepayment, wherever such prepayment is received or such vouchers are sold, that will become the place of supply. Now one of the, these are all not here, these are all not existing today. The most common thing what we are doing, we are getting the prepaid services. The payment for that we are making it through internet banking, through electronic payment. So we are getting a prepaid connection and we are doing the recharge ourselves, right, through internet banking and all. So for that transactions, what is place of supply? Location of the recipient of the service. Location of the recipient of the service. Your address will be available with the supplier, no, that itself. Sir, what if it is not available? It will not be a case. In case of telecommunication services, there will not be a case where the recipient address is not available. Why? Because today if you have to get your mobile connection, you have to give your Aadhaar card. So address is definitely available in the supplier's records. So since address will be definitely available, location of the recipient of services in the records of the suppliers of the services, that will become the place of supply. Understood? If any other telecommunication services are there, in all other cases, if address of the recipient is available, then location of the recipient. If address of the recipient is not available, then the location of the supplier. In all other cases, if any other telecommunication services are there which are not getting specifically covered under any of this above things here, if the address of the recipient is available, location of the recipient. If the address of the recipient is not available, then the location of the supplier will become the place of supply. That's all here. These are the list of all the services which are covered from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14. Each subsection will be talking about specific service and how to determine the place of supply. So that's what I was saying. If in case if you are a service provider, if you want to determine place of supply, first thing what you should do is you should go and check whether your service is falling under any of that specified subsections starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14 where it is falling. In case if you are providing such a service which is not falling under anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14, now you have to come to the default provision. Let us say audit services. Let me take an example of audit services. You tell me, if I'm a chartered accountant, if I'm providing audit services, has it been covered anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14? No. Definitely not, right? So it is not a immobile property related service. It is not a performance based service. It is not a training and performance appraisal. I'm not organizing event. I'm not providing telecommunication. I'm not doing advertising to government. So like that, if you take audit services, it will not get covered anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 till 12 subsection 14. It will not get covered anywhere. Then how to determine the place of supply in case of my audit services, sir? How to determine the place of supply? in between, don't overload this chat box here, because see, I wanted to pay attention to the doubts also if at all you are asking. But in case if you are loading my chat box with irrelevant messages here, that will be little bit troublesome. Okay. So whatever is relevant for this marathon, that you please ask me. Right. That you please ask me. If I find time, I will have a definitely look at it. See, whenever something comes in my chat box, no, I will pay attention. See, if I ignore it, that means I'm not paying attention. I don't like it. If student is saying something, if really he's having a trouble, I wanted to address it. That's why I will keep the chat box open. So don't overload with unnecessary messages. Whatever is relevant here, that only you please ask me, because it is getting my attention there. So generally when a message comes in the chat box, I will pay attention, because I want to know what student is asking for and all. So that's why I pay attention to that. Don't do it. Please, whatever is relevant for this marathon, if you have any doubt on the concepts I'm explaining and all, that you keep it on the chat box. I will be trying to help you out. Okay, don't unnecessarily overload it. Right. So if I come back to the discussion, sorry for the trouble. So in case of that audit services, it is not getting covered anywhere starting from 12 subsection 3 to 12 subsection 14. So you have to come to the default provision 12 subsection 2. So audit services comes under default provision. So now what does the default provision say? This I have already explained you as a part of some other place. So very simple if I have to put it. So what is the default provision is, if the recipient is registered, location of the recipient. If you are providing, let us say for example, I am providing audit services. If my recipient is registered, if I am making a B2B supply, location of the recipient. If I am making a B2C supply, if my client is unregistered person, if recipient is unregistered, what is supply? What is place of supply? I need to check whether in my records, location of the recipient is available. Let us say I'm a chartered accountant. I have a habit. I maintain one database. I record the address of the recipients also. So in case if my recipient is registered, no need to worry. Why? Because if the recipient is registered, he will have a GSTIN. I can go to the Google, I can check the GSTIN number. I will get to know what is his address, location of the recipient. I can find out if the recipient is registered. No headache at all. If you have GSTIN number, you can go to the GSTIN portal. You can go and search the GSTIN number. You will get to know address of the recipient. So that's why if the recipient is registered person, always location of the recipient, because with the help of GSTN number, we can easily find it out. Sir, what if recipient is unregistered person? Then I have to check. Then as a supplier, am I maintaining my recipient's address? If the location of the recipient is available, location of the recipient. Sir, I don't have such habit. I am not maintaining any address of the recipients. In that case, location of the supplier. Location of the supplier. That's all. This much you have to remember. So if the recipient is registered, location of the recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, if address is available in the records of the supplier, location of the recipient. If the address is not available, then the location of the supplier. Understood? Clear everyone? So this is what regarding default provision. So this default provision, once again, location of the, if the recipient is registered, location of recipient. If the recipient is unregistered, you have to check whether the location, if location of recipient is available in your records, location of recipient. If not available, location of supplier. That's all here. This is what regarding default provision. So with this, we have completed the entire section number 12 as well. So we are done with section number 10. We are done with section number 12. And one more small point will be there. Section 8 of IGST Act will be there, which will talk about territorial waters. What if the place of supply is falling in territorial waters? What if place of supply is falling in territorial waters? Do you guys remember what is territorial waters? Up to 12 nautical miles, I have told you, no? Up to 12 nautical miles from the baseline, that I call it as territorial waters. Now, let us say if there is a casino. There is a casino, let us say for example, Big Daddy Casino is there, which is in this territorial waters. Now, in that casino, in that cruise ship, they are providing restaurant services. In that cruise ship, they will provide restaurant services. So what will be place of supply for restaurant services? Just now, as we have covered, wherever that services are performed. Where that services are getting performed? In that territorial waters. That cruise ship, that casino related entity is located in the territorial waters. In that ship, they are providing restaurant services. As per 12 subsection 4, wherever that service is actually performed. So that service is actually getting performed in territorial waters. So place of supply should become territorial waters? No. But what is territorial waters, sir? In case if the place of supply is falling under territorial waters, section 9 of the IGST Act says that then the place of supply will be considered in that state or union territory which is nearest to the coastal line. That state or union territory which is nearest to the coastal line, that will be considered as place of supply. So let us say this casino is located in the territorial waters of Goa. So place of supply is falling in that territorial waters, but place of supply will be considered as closest state or union territory to the baseline. So to this casino, the closest state is Goa. So place of supply will become Goa. Able to understand? So in case if the place of supply is falling under territorial waters. In case if the place of supply is falling under territorial waters, the place of supply will be considered to be the state or union territory which is nearest to the baseline. So this is what section 9 has told. And even in the registration chapter I have told, in case if you are a person in the territorial waters, you have to submit your application for registration also with the nearest state or coastal line, nearest state or union territory to the coastal line. So even registration application you have to submit it to the nearest state or union territory. Even if the place of supply is falling there, even place of supply also will be considered to be the nearest state or union territory to the coastal line. Understood? That's all here. This is what the major discussion and important discussion from the examination perspective regarding the place of supply. Very important. Compulsorily there will be a question from this chapter. 100% there will be a question from this chapter, and that place of supply related discussion we are done with. Okay, so place of supply we have completed. Now what we will try to do is the next chapter which we will pick up for revision is going to be TCS and TDS. We will do TDS and TCS, both we will try to complete it. One small chapter, 2 sections, section number 51 and 52, that we will try to do. So TDS and TCS. TDS is under section number 51 of the CGST Act, TCS under section number 52 of the CGST Act. This small chapter will try to wind it up, but before that let us take one short break. Okay, so we'll try to resume back now. So the next chapter, as I have told, we are going to pick up is the next chapter which I'm going to pick up for revision is going to be TDS and TCS. Very small chapter, but very important from the examination perspective. These days we are seeing very frequent questions from this chapter as well. So let us see. First 51, we'll try to cover TDS. Section number 51 of the CGST Act puts some responsibility on TDS deduction. Sir, what exactly is this TDS mechanism? Just let me give you an overview so that you will get the clarity. See, under Income Tax Act, you might have already been aware of a mechanism called TDS. Under Income Tax Act, the person, for example, if you have to receive some income, the person who has to pay you that money, he will not pay you full amount of money. He will deduct some percentage in the name of TDS and he will deposit it against your PAN number. So what is the whole purpose here? See, let us say you are an employee. Let us say you are qualified, you are chartered accountancy, you are an employee, you are working with some company. Every month he is required to pay you 1 lakh rupees of salary. But as we all are aware, under Income Tax Act, we have a concept called TDS, where your employer will not pay you complete 1 lakh rupees. He will deduct TDS. Let us say, for example, 10%. He will deduct 10% of TDS. So 10,000 rupees he will deduct. Balance 90,000 rupees only he will pay you. So 90,000 rupees you will effectively get it. Now what he will do that 10,000 rupees which has been deducted? So this 10,000 rupees, can your employer enjoy with that money? No, your employer can't enjoy with that money with the amount of money of TDS which has been deducted from you. So what he will do, this 10,000 rupees, he will go and deposit against your PAN number. So you will have a PAN number, no? Against your PAN number, he will go and deposit this money. Okay. So now what you will do, after the financial year comes to an end, you will file your ITR. In your ITR, you will declare your income. How much income you will declare? So 1 lakh rupees of salary every month into 12 months, total 12 lakh rupees of salary you will declare. Now you will calculate your tax liability. Let us say, for example, your tax liability is coming to somewhere around 1,50,000 rupees. But you will not pay the tax amount of entire 1,50,000. But what you will do, you will claim that TDS amount. The amount of TDS has been deducted from you. No, every month 10,000 rupees has been deducted at the rate of 12 for 12 months. Total 1,20,000 rupees of TDS has already been deducted. So that TDS you will adjust it against your tax liability, and whatever excess amount is there, that only you will be paying. Right. Similarly, on the other hand, one more case what could also have happened is your tax liability might be lesser than the TDS amount. Let us say your actual tax liability is coming to 1 lakh rupees only. But against you, the employer has already deducted a TDS of 1,20,000. So now what you can do is, since you have your excess TDS amount, the balance amount, you can claim it as refund. This 20,000 rupees, you can claim it as refund. So TDS is actually a mechanism to prevent the tax evasion. So if there is no concept of TDS, this person might file his return, might not file his return. He might pay the tax, he might not pay the tax. So Income Tax Department doesn't want to have that tax evasion. So that's why they have brought up this concept of TDS under Income Tax Act. A similar kind of TDS mechanism even GST has also brought up in order to avoid the tax evasion. So how this TDS mechanism will work in the GST is, let us say, for example, there is one supplier. He made some supply of goods or services. To a recipient. So now let us say some 10 lakhs worth of supply has been made. Now the recipient is required to pay that amount, no? the recipient is required to pay the amount of that consideration along with GST. Let us say, for example, 10 lakhs and 1,80,000 rupees of GST, total 11,80,000 worth of invoice has been given. A supply has taken place. Now the recipient has to make the payment of 11,80,000. Now, after getting this payment, this supplier might declare this supply in his outward supplies in his GSTR1, or he might not declare it. If it declares, his government will get the revenue. If the supplier is not declaring that outward supplies in his GST return, if the supplier is not declaring, sir, what is evasion? Evasion means escaping. Yes, evasion means escaping. So, in case if the supplier did not declare that GSTR1 in his, did not declare that outward supplies in his GSTR1, then what will happen? This liability government will not get. So, government wants to avoid it. So, what they have told, they have put one responsibility on the recipient. Dear recipient, in case if you are buying a supply from the supplier, and in case when you are making the payment, when you are required to make that payment, don't make the full payment. What you do is deduct the TDS. What you do? You deduct the TDS. So TDS at the rate of 2%, you have to deduct it. So you are making a payment of 10 lakh rupees, on the, you are required to make a payment, exclusive GST amount. You are required to pay exclusive GST amount, 10 lakh rupees you are required to pay, So on that 10 lakh rupees, you deduct TDS. On that 10 lakh rupees, you have to deduct a TDS. So TDS at what rate? So TDS is required to be deducted at effectively 2%. TDS is effectively required to be deducted at 2%. So on this 10 lakh rupees, calculate 2%. So if I calculate the 2%, how much I will get it? To 20,000 rupees, I will get it. Yes or no? So this 20,000 rupees will be deducted, and balance 9,80,000 rupees GST amount fully you have to pay. Balance 9,80,000 along with the GST amount that you will pay to the supplier. Okay. Now this recipient has deducted this 20,000 rupees of TDS. No, what he will do with that money? Can the recipient enjoy with that money? No. This TDS is required to be deposited against the GSTIN number of the supplier. This TDS amount, whatever has been deducted, that amount can't be enjoyed by the recipient. That amount is required to be deposited again as the GSTIN number of the supplier. So this 20,000 rupees will be deposited again as the GSTIN number of the supplier. Now thereafter what will happen? Now this supplier has made a supply. He has got the payment also. So now what he will do, in his GSTR1, he will declare his outward supply. Sir, what is the outward supply? Let us say, for example, if you take only this case, 10 lakh rupees is his outward supply. And he will declare that his output tax liability is 1,80,000. But he is not a fool to pay that entire 1,80,000. Why? Because the recipient has already deducted the TDS, and the amount has already been reflected in that amount has been deposited against the GSTR number of the supplier. This amount of TDS, he will claim it in his electronic cash ledger, where this 20,000 rupees, this supplier will claim it in this 20,000 rupees, this supplier will try to claim it in his electronic cash ledger. So where in the electronic cash ledger, what he will do, in his electronic cash ledger, already 20,000 rupees of amount is lying. So that 20,000 rupees, he will try to adjust it against his output tax liability. Balance is how much? This 1,60,000. That 1,60,000 only he will try to discharge it using his either electronic credit ledger or using his excess balance in the or using his cash balance. So this is what the entire TDS mechanism. This is what, if I have to simply put it, entire TDS mechanism. But here are some technicalities we are required to discuss. But do you guys get the concept of this entire discussion? What is TDS mechanism and all? So recipient, before making payment to the supplier, he is required to deduct TDS at the rate of 2%, and that amount of TDS which has been deducted, that will be deposited against the GST and number of the supplier, and that amount of TDS the supplier can claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Where he can claim that amount? He can claim that amount in his electronic cash ledger. So where the supplier will declare his outward supplies, and he will declare that output tax liability. Against that, he can use that balance in the electronic cash ledger, which he has got it by way of TDS credit. Understood till here? Now, if you go to the technicalities, sir, does that mean every time whenever a supplier is making the supply to the recipient, on all supplies will the recipient deduct the TDS amount? Do you think on each and every supply under GST, will the recipient will be under an obligation to deduct the TDS amount? The answer is no. TDS is required to be deducted only when some conditions are fulfilled. TDS is not applicable in all cases. TDS will become applicable only when some conditions are met. Sir, what are that conditions which are required to be met in order to deduct, in order for the recipient to be required to deduct the TDS? Number one, this TDS mechanism is not applicable for all recipients. The recipient should be a specified recipient. The recipient should be a specified recipient, or let me put it this way, notified recipient. The government has notified certain recipients. So let me put it this way. the government has notified certain recipients. Only for those recipients, TDS provisions will become applicable. Only for that recipients, only for the notified recipients, this will become applicable. Only for the notified recipients, TDS provisions will become applicable. Then, and TDS will become applicable only for that notified recipients also when the value of supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000. When the value of the supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000, then only TDS will become applicable. Able to understand? I will tell you who are that notified recipients, how to calculate that value of supply, all that I will tell you, but here you have to remember it. The correct way of remembrance I am telling you. So when TDS will become applicable, TDS will not become applicable on each and every transaction. TDS will be deducted only when the recipient is a notified recipient and when the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, then only TDS will become applicable. So first we will see, sir, who are that notified recipients for whom TDS will become applicable. So if you come to the material here, the government has notified these people whom we call them as deductors. Deductors means the person whoever is deducting TDS, basically recipient. So deductors of tax at source. Section 51 empowers central government to mandate specified persons to deduct TDS. And who are that specified persons? Number 1, central or state government department or establishment. Establishment of central government or state government. Department or establishment of central government or state government. Except a few departments of Ministry of Defense. So when it comes to Ministry of Defense, that is also department of central government only. But TDS provisions will not become applicable for all departments of Ministry of Defense. Only for specified departments of Ministry of Defense, TDS will become applicable. Remaining departments of Ministry of Defense are exempted. For all other departments, TDS will become applicable. But for when it comes to Ministry of Defense, since Ministry of Defense, they are dealing with arms and ammunitions, it contains information regarding national security. So that's why they did not make TDS applicable on all departments of Ministry of Defense, only for a few departments of Ministry of Defense. So whatever it is, first category of notified person to whom the TDS will become applicable is 2, if the recipient is central or state government or establishment of central or state government. Number 2, local authority. Number 3, government agency. Number 4, any other notified persons or category of persons. Now under this 51 subsection 1 clause D, some extra persons are also notified. Initially the government told establishment or department of central government or state government, local authority, government agency. They have reserved a clause. In future if they want to notify extra persons, they can notify extra persons also. And in fact they have notified these extra persons. Who are that extra people who have been notified on whom the obligation of deducting TDS has been put? Number 1, an authority or a board or any other body which is set up an act of parliament or state legislature or established by any government with 51% of more equity or control by government. So not just direct government entities, if any body or if any authority, if any board has been established either under an act of parliament or under a state legislature or which is established by the government in which 51% or more of equity or control must be there by government, either central or state. And also any society which is established by central government, state government, local authority under Societies Registration Act. And even public sector undertakings, PSUs are also notified, or registered person receiving supplies of metal scrap. If the recipient is a registered person, if he is receiving supplies of metal scrap falling under 72 to 81 in the first schedule to the Customs Tariff Act from other registered person, then also TDS will become applicable. So tell me, who and all are the notified persons here? Number 1, department or establishment of central government or state government. Number 2, local authority. Number 3, government agency and other notified persons. Who are all that other notified persons? Number 1, if any authority or body or board established by central government or state government greater than or equal to 51% of control or equity must be there by government. Society which is established by central government, state government or union or local authorities. Then they have told PSU and also a registered person. So what is that last category? Recently they have added this. Who is that one more person who is required to deduct TDS is if the recipient is a registered person, if he is receiving supplies of metal scrap from another registered person. Now this recipient who is a registered person receiving the supplies of metal scrap from another registered person, he is also required to deduct TDS under section number 51. So only these notified recipients, only these are the deductors who have been notified who will be required to deduct the TDS. Understood? So if I'm a normal common person, if I'm receiving supplies from another person, am I required to deduct TDS? Not required, because you are not falling under that notified recipients category. So first condition we have covered. Sir, what is one more condition? Value of supply under a contract must exceed 2,50,000. So these recipients also, on every supply whatever they are receiving, they are not required to deduct TDS. They are required to deduct TDS only on those supplies Although only those kind of notified recipients are only in respect of those supplies where value of supply is more than value of supply under a contract is more than 2,50,000, then only TDS will be deducted. So here if you see, so deduct is suppliers whose total value of supply exceeds total value of taxable supplies, taxable goods and services under a contract exceeds 2,50,000 exclusive of taxes and cesses as per the invoice, then only TDS will become applicable. Now there are few important points, few intricacies which you need to remember. Let us say for example, the recipient is a specified recipient. Let us take PSU. They are receiving supplies. Okay, so where they are receiving a supply amounting to 2,50,000 plus GST, if I add it, let us say 15,000 rupees of GST, total 2,55,000 worth of supplies this PSU is receiving. PSU is a notified person. Whether TDS will become applicable? Whether TDS will become applicable? So I told value of supply under a contract when it exceeds 2,50,000, then only TDS will become applicable. Now my doubt is, while calculating the value of supply, should I consider the value of supply exclusive of taxes or should I consider the value inclusive of taxes? They have clarified that consider only value of supply excluding the taxes. So here value of supply under a contract is 2,40,000 only, TDS will not become applicable. Let me tell you one more case. So there is a PSU here, they're receiving supplies, taxable supply amounting to 2,50,000, taxable supply, exempt supply amounting to 20,000. On taxable supply, GST is there, which is coming to 15,000 rupees. Total 2,75,000 rupees worth of supply they are making. Now, PSU is a notified person. So, whether TDS will become applicable here. TDS will become applicable, as I have told, only when the value of supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000. Now you tell me here, what is the value of supply? Did it exceed the value of 2,50,000? Now the point which is there in your mind is, while calculating the limit of that value of supply, should I consider only taxable supply or should I also consider exempt supply? They are asking you to consider only value of the taxable supply. Only taxable supply value you have to consider. Exempt supply you should not consider. So value of supply here is only 2,40,000 rupees, which since the contract value did not exceed 2,50,000 rupees, here also TDS will not become applicable. Let me give you one more case. Let us say there is a PSU. They have entered a contract for 10 lakhs worth of supply. They have entered into a contract for 10 lakhs worth of supply. Now they have sent one invoice. Invoice number 1 has come, in which the value of supply is 2,40,000 rupees only. Invoice number 2 has been given, in which the value of supply is 2 lakh rupees only. Invoice number 3 has been given, in which the value of supply is once again 2,50,000 rupees only. And invoice number 4 has been given, in which invoice value is 1,50,000. So like that, the total contract is for 10 lakhs, but they are giving individual invoices. In each invoice, the value of supply is less than 2,50,000 only. Will TDS become applicable? Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Yes, TDS will become applicable. Why? Because what they are saying is, they are not asking you to check the invoice value. They are asking you to check the value of taxable supplies under a contract. Under a contract, you might be giving a multiple invoice. We will not apply that limit of 2,50,000 rupees for each invoice. We will apply the value of 2,50,000 rupees of limit for all the invoices under a single contract. So under a single contract, you are giving multiple invoices. So here value of supply, value of taxable supply under a contract, under the value of under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees. So from invoice 1 itself, we have to start deducting TDS. Able to understand? Clear? Right. So this is what regarding who should be specific, who should be notified recipient and how to calculate the value of supply. Now, there are some cases where TDS will not become applicable. That means even though recipient is a notified recipient, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. When, sir? When the supply is happening among the notified persons. When the supply is happening among the notified recipients only. Let us say, for example, one PSU is supplying the goods to another PSU. So here PSU is a notified recipient. Recipient is specified person. Value of supply under a contract is more than 2,50,000 rupees. But still TDS is not required to be deducted. Why? Because the supply is happening among that notified recipients. Or let us say one central government department or establishment is making supply to some society which is established by central government or state government under Societies Registration Act. Both are notified persons, both are notified deductors. So if supply is happening among themselves, TDS is not required to be deducted except this person, except the last person. Except the last notified person is there, no? Who is the last notified person? Recipient of metal scrap. Recipient of metal scrap. Let us say, for example, there is a PSU. If that PSU is making supplies of metal scrap, PSU is also registered, and they are making a supply to a recipient who is a registered person. Sir, these are all. This is also a supply happening among notified persons only. No, will TDS become applicable? Yes, here TDS will become applicable. So the point which I want to say here is, this one. If supply of goods, this point you read it, the supply of goods or services, if it is taking place between one person to another person specified. So among these people only, if the supply is happening, between these people, if the supply is happening, then TDS is not required to be deducted, excluding the last one. Excluding, except the person referred to in here. So except this person. Except this person, that means these are all the notified recipients, right? If the supply is happening among themselves, this three and this three, if the supply is happening among themselves, then TDS will not be applicable. But if the supply is happening among these persons and this registered person receiving supplies of metal scrap, then TDS will become applicable. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable? Clear and comfortable? Right. So let us try to proceed ahead. Let us try to understand further. So this is one case where TDS will not become applicable. There are also few more cases where TDS will not become applicable. There is also one more case where TDS will not become applicable. Many a times a question in the exam will come on this point. Listen carefully. So sometimes what will happen is, recipient is a notified person. Recipient is a specified recipient. Value of supply under a contract has also exceeded 2,50,000 rupees. But still TDS will not become applicable. When, sir? One case I have already told. If the supply is happening among those, between those specified recipients, except that clause D, then TDS will not become applicable. One more case I am going to say you now. Even though the recipient is a specified recipient, even though the value of supply is under a contract is more than 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. Sir, what is that one case, sir? When the location of the supplier and place of supply, they are falling in the same state. They're falling in the same state or union territory, which is different from the location of the recipient, which is different from the state of registration of the recipient, which is different from state or union territory of the recipient, then TDS will not become applicable. Even though the recipient is a specified recipient, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000, still this is one such case where TDS will not become applicable. What is that one such case? Where the location of the supplier and the place of supply is falling in the same state or union territory, which is different from the state or union territory of recipient, then TDS will not become applicable. The logic is very simple. Instead of remembering it like this, I will tell you one simple logic to remember it. So you understand the concept behind it, then the discussion will become very clear. So let us see. So what is that? What is this point trying to say here is, let us say, for example, location of the supplier is in Andhra Pradesh. Place of supply is also in Andhra Pradesh. Location of the recipient is also in Andhra Pradesh. Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Why, sir? Let me tell you what exactly will happen here. See, when the location of the supplier, place of supply, both are falling in same state, it is what supply? Intrastate supply. So if it is intrastate supply, let us say transaction is happening for 1 lakh rupees. Transaction is happening. So supplier is registered with AP government. Recipient is also registered with AP government. Recipient is also registered with AP government. Both are registered with AP government only. So on this supply is an intrastate supply. So this recipient is required to deduct TDS. Which TDS is required to deduct? Since it is an intrastate supply, CGST at the rate of 1%, SGST at the rate of 1%. If it is interstate, directly 2%. If it is intrastate, CGST 1%, SGST 1% he will deduct. Which state SGST he will deduct? AP state, because he is registered with AP only, no? So now this amount has to be given as credit in an electronic cash ledger to the supplier. Now where the supplier is registered, supplier is also registered with AP state government. So that CGST credit he can claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Since he is also registered with AP state government, AP GST related credit also he can claim it. AP GST related TDS also he can take it in his electronic cash ledger. Any problem here? No problem. Why? Because all are located in the same state. Now let me tell you different scenario. Let us say location of the supplier, place of supply, location of the recipient. Location of the supplier is in Andhra Pradesh. Place of supply is in Tamil Nadu. Location of the recipient is in Karnataka. Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Why? Why? Because let us say here once again, let me give you diagrammatic presentation. Supplier located in AP. Recipient is located in Karnataka. So he will be registered with Karnataka state government. Supplier will be registered with AP state government. Okay. So now 1 lakh worth of supply has taken place. What is the nature of supply? Since location of the supplier, place of supply is falling under two different states, that is an interstate supply. If it is an interstate supply, here the recipient will deduct TDS. How much? At the rate of 2%. Which TDS? IGST he will deduct. So IGST, let us say for example 2000 he has deducted. Now this IGST is required to be claimed by the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. How he will claim it? IGST he will claim it. IGST credit of 2000 he will claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Will there be any trouble here? No, here also there will not be any trouble. Now let me take you the another case. Location of the supplier, place of supply, location of the recipient. Let us say location of the supplier is in AP, place of supply is also in AP, but location of the recipient is in Karnataka. That means location of the supplier and the place of supply both are falling in one state which is different from the state or union territory of the recipient. Okay, so once again, if I give you a presentation here, there is a supplier in Karnataka, supplier in Andhra Pradesh. He is registered with AP, he is registered with Karnataka. 1 lakh worth of supply has taken place. Now you tell me what is the nature of supply. Since location of the supplier, place of supply, both are falling within same state, it is a what? Intra-state supply. So if it is an intra-state supply, this recipient is required to deduct CGST and Karnataka. Since he is registered with Karnataka government, Karnataka GST also he has to deduct. 1% he will deduct, 1% he will deduct. Now this amount is required to be claimed by the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. So CGST he can claim, no trouble. CGST 1% he can claim in his electronic cash ledger. But supplier is registered with AP government, AP GST state credit he has to take in electronic cash ledger. But the recipient would have deducted Karnataka GST. Recipient has deducted Karnataka GST, but supplier has to collect the credit in AP GST cash ledger. So do you think will this state governments allow it? No, state governments will not allow it. So this will create a problem. So in order to avoid all this headache, they told in this case TDS itself will not become applicable. In this particular case, TDS itself will not become applicable because they don't want the fights between the state governments. I hope you guys are able to understand. So if you understand the logic, no, the concept will become very clear. But for the exam, you have to remember this. If the location of the supplier and the place of supply both are falling in same state or union territory, which is different from the state or union territory of the location of the recipient, then TDS will not become applicable even though the recipient is notified, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. Okay, so what did I tell you till now? So when TDS will become, first the recipient must be notified. Who and all are notified, we have seen. Value of supply under a contract must exceed 2,50,000. How to calculate the value of supply, we have seen. And also what are that specific cases where TDS will not become applicable, that also we have seen. Now coming to the next point, sir, what should be the rate of TDS? What should be the rate of TDS which is required to be deducted? As I've already told you, standard rate of deduction. If it is intrastate supply, 1% CGST, 1% SGST. If it is interstate supply, 2% IGST. Now, this 1%, 2% also, whatever you are calculating, will you calculate that 1%, 2% on the value inclusive of GST or exclusive of GST? This TDS you are required to deduct, no, either at the rate of 1%, 1% or 2%, let us say effectively 2%. This TDS is required to deduct, no. From which value you will deduct it? Will you deduct it on the value of supply? Let us say 10 lakhs is the value of supply. 1,80,000 is the applicable rate of GST. You will deduct that 2% on this 10 lakh rupees or 11,80,000. You are required to deduct the TDS on the value exclusive of taxes, not on inclusive of taxes. You have to deduct the TDS on the value exclusive of taxes. Okay, so that's what we try to say it here. Deductors must deduct 1% of CGST from the payment which is created. Okay, all this I have explained. Now let us go ahead and understand remaining points. Deposit of TDS with the government. This point also I have clarified. Whatever amount of TDS that has been deducted from the payment to be made to the supplier that can't be enjoyed by the recipient, that is required to be deposited with the government. And also a TDS certificate will be given by the deductor. Whoever is deducting that TDS, he should also make available to the supplier one TDS certificate in form number GSTR 7A. And what details will be given in that TDS certificate is TDS certificate number, GSTN of the deductor, name of the deductor, GSTN of the deductee, legal name of the deductee and trade name, tax period in which that tax was deducted, and also details of the supplies, amount of tax deducted. Sir, what if the deductor is not remitting that amount to the government? He deducted TDS, but he is not remitting that amount to the government. What will happen, sir? He will be liable to pay the penalty. He will be liable to pay interest under section number 50. And whatever amount of TDS that has been deposited, as I have told, that will get reflected in the electronic cash ledger. And deductor will file a return called GSTR 7. So these deductors are there, no, they will deduct TDS, no, they will be required to file one return GSTR 7. They have to file by 10th of the succeeding month. Along with filing of the GSTR 7, they will also pay the TDS amount to the government. And that amount will get reflected in the electronic cash ledger of the deductee. Deductee means supplier. Next. So this point is not relevant. If any excess amount has been deducted, if any excess amount is deducted and deposited, that amount can be claimed as refund. Either deductor can claim it as refund or deductee can claim it as refund. And those people who are required to deduct TDS under section number 51, they are required to undergo compulsory registration. If you remember section number 24 related discussion, we have seen a bunch of people. We have seen a list of people who are required to undergo compulsory registration under section number 24, right? So there I have told you under section number 24, one category of persons who are required to undergo compulsory registration is TDS deductor. So if you are a person who is required to deduct TDS under section number 24, you will be liable to undergo compulsory registration under section number 51. And it will be a special case. You will get the registration within 3 working days only. So this is what regarding TDS provision. Okay, successfully 51 we are done. Now we will try to talk about TCS, collection of TCS under section number 52. Sir, what is this TCS concept? This also I will give you first overall structure. Thereafter we'll go into the technical discussion. TCS provisions are only applicable for e-commerce operator. TCS provisions are only applicable for e-commerce operator. And what is that e-commerce operator? What is that application says? Let us say we have Amazon. So Amazon is an e-commerce operator. So practically what will happen in the Amazon business model, there will be suppliers who will be registering with Amazon. So on Amazon, they will list the products. And there will be a customer, like you and me, there will be a customer who will go through the Amazon and who will place an order. So let us say I liked a mobile phone. I placed an order on Amazon. Now Amazon will route that order. Amazon will route that order to the supplier. Now, what supplier, this Amazon, once I place the order on the Amazon, this Amazon only will collect the consideration. No, let us say for example 50,000 worth of mobile phone they have purchased. Now 50,000 rupees of amount will be collected by e-commerce operator, and that order will be forwarded to the supplier. Now supplier has to dispatch the mobile and send it to the recipient. Supplier has to dispatch the mobile and send it to the recipient. Now what Amazon will do? Amazon has to remit that amount, whatever amount they have collected from the supplier, from the recipient, they have to remit it to the supplier. So they have collected 50,000 rupees. Generally what will happen is on that 50,000 rupees and all, they will collect their commission for listing charges and all, like that various charges will be there. So they will deduct their commission and all and remit the balance amount to the supplier. This is what usually should happen. Now what they have told is on the e-commerce operators, they have put one extra responsibility. What extra responsibility they have put is whenever you are remitting the amount to the supplier, don't remit him the full amount. Anyhow, you will deduct your commission. In addition to that, you also collect from him something called TCS. You collect from him some amount called TCS. That amount you deducted from the settlement which you are required to make it to the supplier. So practically what will happen is, in this case, if 50,000 has been collected, from that 50,000, first e-commerce operator will deduct his commission. Thereafter, under section number 52, he is also required to collect something called TCS. The TCS amount is also required to be collected, and balance amount only will be remitted to the supplier. Sir, now what is the rate of that TCS? 0.5%. What is the rate of TCS? 0.5% of the net value of the taxable supplies. So TCS at the rate of 0.5% will be deducted and balance amount will be remitted. Okay, sir, what he will do with that 0.5%? He has deducted, let us say if I calculate it here, it will come to somewhere around 250. So what this e-commerce operator will do with that TCS amount? He has collected TCS, no, under section number 52, that amount he is collecting and balance only he is remitting it to the supplier, no. What he will do with that amount of TCS? Can he enjoy with that money? No, he can't enjoy with that money. Then what he will do with that money? That amount is required to be deposited with the government. That amount is required to be deposited with the government. Again, as the GSTIN number of the supplier. This 250 will be deposited by the e-commerce operator. Again, as the GSTIN number of the supplier. Now, what supplier will do? Supplier can take that credit in his electronic cash ledger. So whatever amount of TCS that has been deducted by the e-commerce operator, that the supplier can claim it, and that amount will get credited to his electronic cash ledger, and that can be used by the e-commerce, that can be used by the supplier to settle his output tax liabilities. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So this is what the whole concept of TCS under section number 52. Okay, so whenever a supplier is making the supply of goods or services, not just for goods, even if any services are getting supplied, but services other than those notified under 9 subsection 5. for services in case supply of services through an e-commerce operator for services other than notified under 9 subsection 5, on that only TCS will be collected. So what are the services notified under 9 subsection 5 that we have already covered in the charge of GST chapter? I told you 6. Initially 5 used to be there. 1 was added to the list recently. So 6 services are there. On that 6 services, if that 6 services are supplied through the e-commerce operator, TCS will not be collected. Apart from that 9 subsection 5 services, if any other services or goods are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator, on that goods or services, e-commerce operator will be required to collect the TCS at the rate of 0.5% and deposit that with the government again as a GST number of the supplier, and the supplier can avail that in his electronic cash ledger. Understood? Clear, everyone? Now, there are few things which we need to be clear here. Let us say, for example, there is a company called Sleepwell. Now this Sleepwell is selling the furniture. Now this Sleepwell is having a e-commerce platform also. They are having their website, sleepwell.com. They have their own website. On that own website, they will sell their own products. They will not sell others' products. Let us say, for example, today if I want a chair of the Sleepwell, what I can do is I can go to the website sleepwell.com, and from there I can place an order for the chair. And that sleepwell.com will deliver that chair to me. So this is also a e-commerce portal. The Sleepwell website is also an e-commerce operator. But through that portal, are they selling others' goods or are they selling their own goods? Through that e-commerce operator, they are selling their own goods. They are not selling others' goods. Do you think there also will TCS provisions will become applicable? No, TCS provisions will not become applicable there. So the point which I want to clarify here is TCS provisions will become applicable only on such e-commerce operator through which they are selling others' goods or services. If through the e-commerce operator, if they are selling their own goods or services, then TCS provisions will not become applicable. Understood? Clear? And also one more point which I would like to bring it to your attention here. There might be a cases where e-commerce operators will not be collecting the consideration. There are some e-commerce operators. Let us say, for example, there used to be a platform called eBay or something like that. A platform used to be there where suppliers only list their products on that e-commerce operator. Recipients will buy the product, but that e-commerce operator will not collect any consideration. Consideration will be directly collected by the supplier only. Just they will list their product on the e-commerce operator, but recipient directly will pay the consideration to the supplier only. In that case also will TCS provisions become applicable? No, in that case also TCS provisions will not become applicable. Why? Because if e-commerce operator has not collected any TCS amount only, how they can do it? If TCS operator has not collected any TCS amount, if the e-commerce operator has not collected any consideration, how they can collect the TCS amount? Not possible, no. So this is also one case where TCS will not become applicable. Where the consideration is not collected by the e-commerce operator, consideration is collected directly by the supplier. Understood? Clear, everyone? So that's what they try to say it here. So this is what I have told, overview of TCS and all. I have told who is liable to collect TCS, e-commerce operator, at what rate? 0.5% of net value of taxable supplies. If it is interest rate supply, 0.5%. If it is intrastate supply, 0.25% CGST, 0.25% SGST. And this 0.5% or 0.25% should be calculated on net values of taxable supply. Sir, what do you mean by net value of taxable supply? The total value of taxable supplies minus returns. In a month, generally what will happen is this TCS will be remitted on monthly basis. In 1 month, what is the total values made by the supplier through that e-commerce operator? Let us say he made 10 lakhs worth of supply through the e-commerce operator. But returns also are quite possible. Let us say 2 lakh worth returns are there. So they will take out that 2 lakhs worth of return. Net 8 lakhs. How much? Net 8 lakh worth of value of net taxable supplies has been supplied through the e-commerce operator by that supplier. On this, they will multiply that 0.25% CGST, SGST or 0.5% of IGST in case of interstate supplies. On net value of taxable supplies, they are required to collect that TCS amount. Okay. This also I have given you how to calculate that net value of taxable supplies. I have clarified. Then what? Deposit of TCS amount by the ECO. Whatever TCS amount which has been collected by e-commerce operator that they can't enjoy with that money, they have to go and deposit that with the government. And even this TCS operator is also required to undergo compulsory registration, and they will also be granted registration within 3 working days. And what and all are various monthly and annual returns which are required to be filed by ECO is they're required to file one monthly return GSTR 8 by 10th of the succeeding month, and that TCS credit will be made available to the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. And these e-commerce operators are also required to file one annual return in GST or 9B. These due dates can be extended. And also the proper officers can send a notice to the e-commerce operator to provide additional information. If the proper officer feels that some extra information they can get it from e-commerce operator, even they can issue a notice to the e-commerce operator to share that extra information with them. Clear? That's all. With this, we have completed TCS and TDS related provisions. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Right. So if you come back to the index, what and all we have covered now. So today we have covered this place of supply chapter and TDS and TCS chapter. So now what one more thing which I would like to do now is which would now I like to do is I wanted to take you through the contents of tax invoice, debit and credit notes. This I will try to quickly do. This chapter, tax invoice, debit and credit notes, I will try to quickly do it in the today's live session. So many students have been asking me for exemptions. Exemptions I will try to do it, but not today. Today I will try to end the live. So one more last chapter which I will pick up now for live session is tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So this we will try to do quickly, tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So once we are done with the tax invoice, debit and credit notes, we will wind up the live sessions. We will wind up this live sessions. Thereafter, what we will try to do is exemptions I will definitely do. Not all exemptions, I might not be able to do it, but a bunch of exemptions, whatever important exemptions are there. So all that exemptions I will try to pick up and I will try to upload that video. I will do an upload of video, will not do it in a live session. So today we'll try to end our live sessions. And one more last topic which I'll be doing it live revision is going to be tax invoice, debit and credit notes, that we will try to do the revision now in this session in the live. Many of you guys have been asking for exemptions. That exemptions I will try to record it and I will try to upload it. Because exemptions is such a huge chapter, we can't do 100% revision. So what I will do, all the conceptual things from that exemptions chapter, all the important things, very frequently tested questions from that exemptions, that all that I will identify and that I will try to record and upload it. Okay. So now what I will be doing is quickly I will be taking you through the content of tax invoice, debit and credit notes that I will try to cover. Okay. Why? Because from here also some questions are going to come, and this tax invoice, debit and credit notes is having a strong connection with the time of supply chapter also. Time of supply chapter I will not be revising. Why? Because the time of supply chapter is completely of remembrance. Only that is remembrance part. Even if I have to revise it also, just I have to read the material, nothing else I have there to do. But this time of supply is having a strong connection with the tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So that's why I'll be doing tax invoice, debit and credit notes now. So let me take you through that content now. Okay. So first, the main discussion which we are going to now here we are going to have is section number 31. Section number 31 is the section which is the main section which is going to talk about various kinds of documents and what are the time limits for issuance of those documents. So mainly, first I will be trying to pick up section number 31, where I will be trying to cover 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 2, 4 and 5. So 31 subsection 1 and 31 subsection 2 will talk about what 31 subsection 1 is going to talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in the case of supply of goods. 31 subsection 2 will talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in the case of supply of services. Subsection 4 will talk about what is time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods. Subsection 6 will talk about what is time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. So this time limits you have to remember. So 4 subsections of section number 31 I am going to talk about. 31 subsection 1, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of goods. Then we have 31 subsection 2, which is talking about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of services. 31 subsection 4, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods. 31 subsection 5, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Remember it. Why? Because this will have a linkage with the time of supply chapter. So first of all, in case of Normal supply of goods. What is the time limit within which I am required to issue the invoice? They say that in case of normal supply of goods, invoice shall be issued before or at the time of removal of the goods. In case if you are making a supply which involves the movement of the goods, invoice is required to be issued on or before the removal of the goods. In case if the supply does not involve any movement, then the invoice is required to be issued on or before the delivery of the goods or making that goods available to the recipient. So very simple, 31 subsection 1. In case it will talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of supply of goods. If it involves movement, if you are making a supply which involves the movement of the goods on or before the removal of the goods. If you are making a supply which does not involve any movement of the goods on or before the delivery or making the goods available. This is the maximum time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice. Thereafter, in case of supply of services, what will be the time limit? In case of supply of services, you can give invoice either before the supply, at the time of supply, even after making the supply of the services also you can give invoice. In case of supply of services, either you can give invoice before, at the time, or even after making the supply also you can give invoice. But there is a maximum time limit. So what is the maximum time limit? So invoice shall be issued either before or after provision of service, but within a period of, if you are a normal person, you are required to give invoice maximum within 30 days from the date of supply of service. What is the maximum time limit? In case of normal suppliers like you and me, if you are providing the supply of services, we have to issue the invoice within 30 days from the date of supply of services. Whereas in the case of insurer, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, invoice is required to be, they can give invoice within 45 days from the date of supply of the service. For normal people, within 30 days from the date of provision of the service. For insurer, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, they can give the invoice within 45 days from the date of supply of services. Okay, so this much you remember it. Thereafter, 31 subsection 4. In case of continuous supply of goods. In case of continuous supply of the goods, what will be the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? So in case of continuous supply of the goods, they say that invoice shall be issued before or at the time each such a statement is issued or payment is received. In case if you are making continuous supply of the goods, where the supplier is giving periodical statements, on or before that successive statement you are required to issue invoice. In case if the supplier is not issuing any statement, just you are making periodical payments, on or before that payment you are required to issue the invoice. If the supplier is giving successive statements on or before that statement, if the supplier is not giving you successive statement, directly you are making periodical payment on or before that payment. So whatever the case is, accordingly you have to give the tax invoice. Whereas in case of continuous supply of services, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice? Here they have told three things. In case of continuous supply of services, you have to check the contract. Is the due date ascertainable? In the contract, let us say for example, this I will try to explain with the help of example. First of all, we need to understand what is continuous supply of service. In order to qualify as continuous supply of service, they say that there should be a supply of service on a continuous or recurrent basis for a period exceeding 3 months. For more than 3 months on a continuous or recurrent basis, if you are providing services, then only it will be treated as continuous supply of services. There is no such condition for continuous supply of goods. For continuous supply of goods, they simply say that if you are providing the goods on a continuous basis or recurring basis, it will be considered as continuous supply of goods. But for continuous supply of services, in order to qualify as continuous supply of services, the services must be provided on a recurrent basis, on a continuous basis for a period exceeding 3 months. Then only we'll call it as continuous supply of services. Very important, you have to remember this definition. And in case of continuous supply of services, what is the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? First, you have to check the contract. If in the contract or agreement, due dates are clearly given. Let us say I am providing construction services, which is going to definitely go on for more than 3 months. So I am making a continuous supply of service. Now contract will be there. If in the contract, due dates are clearly given. Let us say for example, 25% of the payment you are required to make it on or before 31st of March 2025. 50% of the payment you have to do it on or before 30th of June 2025. And 75% of the payment you are required to make it by 15th of September. So like that, if the due dates are clearly ascertainable on or before that due date, for that respective portion you have to give the invoice. On or before that due date, you have to give the respective portion invoice. Let us say for example, entire contract value is 1 CR, 25% payment I have to make it on or before 31st of March 2025. So that's why for 25 lakh rupees, I am required to generate the invoice on or before 31st of March 2025. So like that, if due dates are clearly ascertainable, on or before that due date, you are required to issue the invoice. But sometimes what will happen is due dates are not clearly given. Due dates are linked with completion of event. Due dates are linked with completion of event. In case if the due date is linked with the completion of event, invoice is required to be issued on or before the completion of that event. Let us say I have told in the contract that on completion of ground floor, 20% payment you are required to make. On completion of the first floor, another 30% payment you are required to make. So here due dates are linked with the completion of the event. In that case, invoice is required to be issued on or before the completion of this event. So let us say on or before completion of the ground floor, I have to give the invoice for the 20% value. On or before completion of the first floor, I am required to generate the invoice for 30% of the value. So another case, let us say if due dates are not at all ascertainable. I did not give in the contract any fixed date, even it is not linked with any completion of event. If due dates are not ascertainable, then what will happen? On or before making the payment. On or before receiving the payment. You are a supplier, no? On or before you receive payment, you have to generate the invoice. That's all. So this is what how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Clear? So we have covered 4 subsections. 31 subsection 1, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of goods. 31 subsection 2, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of services. 31 subsection 4, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of the goods. 31 subsection 5, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Then we have 31 subsection 6, which says that what if supply of services ceases before its completion? You have agreed to provide the services. Before even you could complete the service is ceasing, the service is stopping. Let us say, for example, I told you I will teach you the CA final IDT for 2 months. And I have started providing the services. After 1 month itself, I am stopping it. I am not providing it. So in case if the supply of service is ceasing before its completion, till that portion, whatever service I have provided, for that I have to issue invoice or not? Yes. And that invoice you have to issue it. That invoice you have to issue it at the time when that supply ceases. Whenever that supply of service is stopping, at that point of time you are required to issue the invoice, not for full amount, only to the extent of supply made before such a cessation. Before that stopping of service, whatever portion of supply I have provided, for that portion I have to issue the invoice at the time when that supply is ceasing. Then one more point, this is important for exam and MCQs. 31 subsection 7, what is the time limit within which I am required to issue the invoice in case the goods are sent on sale or return basis? In case if you are sending the goods on sale or return basis, what is the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? They say that in case goods are sent out on sale or return basis, invoice I am required to issue either before or at the time of making supply. Either at the time of making supply or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. You have to issue the invoice earlier of the following dates, before or at the time of supply, or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. Sir, what exactly they are trying to say? Let us say, for example, on 1st of January. On 1st of January 2026, I am sending 10,000 quantity of the goods. Not for the purpose of making supply. Not for supply, but I am sending these goods on sale on return or approval basis. That means I will send these goods. If the customer accepts it, then only sale will happen. If the customer does not accept it, he can send me back. So initially I am sending this 10,000 quantity. Am I required to issue invoice here? No. I am causing this movement of the goods not for supply. I am causing this movement of the goods not for supply. I am causing this movement of the goods for reason other than supply. Here invoice is not required, but we will give one document called delivery challan. So here I will not give any invoice. So I will move the goods on delivery challan. Now these goods are lying with the recipient. Now recipient after some time either he will accept or reject it too. Let us say, for example, out of the 10,000 quantity, some 5,000 quantity he has accepted. 5,000 quantity, this person has accepted. On, let us say, for example, on 5th of March 2026, this person has given approval for 5,000 quantity. So 5,000 quantity, the supply has taken place on 5th of March 2026. So for that 5,000 quantity, invoice is required to be given on or before 5th of March. Some another 2,000 quantity, he gave the approval on, let us say, for example, on 5th of May, he gave the approval for 2026. On 5th of May 2026, he gave approval for 2,000 quantity. So this supply has taken place on 5th of May. On or before 5th of May, you are required to issue the invoice. Balance 3,000 quantity is there, no? That 3,000 quantity was not given any approval. And 6 months from the date of removal is already over. 180 days, sorry, not 6 months. What is the terminology they use here? Yeah, 6 months they use. So 6 months from the date of removal is over. So once again, if you come to your notes, so from 1st of January 2026, 6 months are over. Let us say, for example, 1st of July 2026 is over. But for this 3000 quantity, I did not get any approval. Still what the act says, on or before that 1st of July, on or before the expiry of that 6 months, you are required to issue the invoice for that 3000 quantity also. Even if he has not given acceptance, still it will be deemed to have been supplied. For that 3000 quantity, you are required to issue the invoice on or before 1st of July 2026. You are supposed to issue the invoice. Understood? So that's what the meaning of this content here. Very important point. Where goods are being sent on approval for sale or return basis, invoice is required to be issued on or before the earlier of the following dates. What is it? If the actual supply has taken place at before or at the time of supply, or maximum within 6 months from the date of removal of the goods. Understood? So this is what regarding various circumstances and various time limits within which you are required to issue the invoice. If you pay close attention, we have covered 31 subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 4, subsection 5, subsection 6, subsection 7. Sir, what happened to subsection 3, sir? What does 31 subsection 3 will talk about? 31 subsection 3 will talk about some special documents. 31 subsection 3 will talk about some special documents which will be given in special circumstances. So if you open section number 31 subsection 3, there will be each clause which is talking about a separate document. Like 31 subsection 3 clause A, it will talk about revised tax invoice. 31 subsection 3 clause B, it will talk about some other document. 31 subsection 3 clause C, there will be something called bill of supply. Here it is consolidated invoice. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause D, there will be something called receipt voucher. 31 subsection 3 clause A, there will be something called refund voucher. 31 subsection 3 clause F, there will be something called self-invoicing. 31 subsection 3 clause G, there will be something called payment voucher. So like that, in different circumstances, different documents will be given. That all is covered under 31 subsection 3. Let us see what are all that special documents and when they are going to be issued. Okay, so let me come here. 31 subsection 3, special circumstances. Right, yeah, special cases. First, I will talk about 31 subsection 3 clause A, which is talking about a document called revised tax invoice. Sir, what is that revised tax invoice? I will try to explain it in a simple manner. Let us say you become liable for registration. On 1st of February 2026, you become liable for registration. Within 30 days, you are submitting the application. On 28th of February 2026, you are submitting an application for registration. Thereafter, you got your registration certificate on 20th of March. Thereafter, you got your registration certificate on 20th of March. But even though you got the registration certificate on 20th of March, in this case, it will be effective retrospectively. This point I have told you in registration chapter itself. In case if you become liable for registration, within 30 days, if you are submitting an application for registration, at a later date, you will get the registration certificate, but that registration will be effective retrospectively. So your registration will be effective from 1st of February 2026. Whatever supplies you have made from 1st of February 2026 till the time you got the registration certificate, you would not have collected GST. Why? Because you have got the GST here only on 20th of March only. You got to know about your GST, but you become liable to pay the GST from 1st of February itself. So that's why what the department has given you an option is, in this case, from the date you become liable for registration till the date you got the registration certificate, you will be given an option to issue something called a revised tax invoices. For your suppliers, you can give a revised tax invoices charging the amount of GST separately. So that is what we call it as a revised tax invoice. And this option will become applicable only when the person has made an application within 30 days. In case if the person has made an application after 30 days, then there is no concept of revised tax invoice. Understood? Clear and comfortable? So that's what they try to say it here. A person whose registration is effective from a date earlier than date of issuance of the registration certificate, he can issue revised tax invoice. And what is the time limit within which revised tax invoice is required to be given? Within 1 month from the date of issuance of the registration certificate. You will get the registration certificate within 1 month from this date of registration certificate. Within 1 month, you are required to issue that revised tax invoice. If at all you want, it is an optional facility. It is not mandatory. It is an optional facility. If at all you want to give revised tax invoice, you can give revised tax invoice, but you have to do it within 1 month from the date of issuance of the registration certificate. Understood? So this is what the concept of revised tax invoice. Now going ahead with a few more things here. No tax invoice is required in some cases. No tax invoice is required. So 31 subsection 3 clause B says that you are not required to issue tax invoice. When, sir? When your recipient is unregistered. When the recipient is an unregistered person, value of supply is less than 200 rupees and recipient did not ask for invoice. Recipient is not asking for invoice. Then you need not give a separate tax invoice. Small transactions. For small transaction also, if you waste your time on giving the tax invoice and tax invoices and all, it will become a costly affair. So that's why what they have told is, when all these conditions are fulfilled, what are they? Recipient must be unregistered person, value of supply should be less than 200, and recipient did not specifically ask you for invoice. In case if the recipient is asking you for invoice, you have to give it, even if it is for 1 rupee also. But in case if the recipient is unregistered, value of supply is less than 200, and recipient did not specifically ask you for any invoice, in that cases you need not give tax invoice. But by the end of the day, you have to identify all such cases where you have not given the tax invoice, and you have to give one consolidated revised tax invoice. Sorry, consolidated tax invoice you are required to give. What you are required to give by the end of the day, you have to identify all those cases where you did not give the invoice, and you have to generate one consolidated tax invoice. So that is what 31 subsection 3 clause B says. So when you may not issue a tax invoice, all these three conditions: value of supply does not exceed 200, the recipient is unregistered, and the recipient does not require such invoice. Here you have to be very careful. Even if the value is equal to 200 also, you are required to issue tax invoice mandatorily. Only when the value is less than 200. That means if it is equal to 200, am I required to issue tax invoice? Yes. The relaxation is given only when the value of supply is less than 200 rupees. And the recipient must be unregistered person, and the recipient does not ask you to such invoice. Then 31 subsection 3 clause C is there, which is talking about a document called bill of supply. Sir, what is this bill of supply? Bill of supply is very simple. In case if you are a composition dealer, as we have seen in section number 10, composition dealer will not collect any tax from the recipient. Composition dealer, will he collect any tax from the recipient? The answer is no. So composition dealer will not collect any tax from the recipient, but he will make supplies. He has to issue some document. No. Can he give tax invoice? No. Why he can't give tax invoice? Because he is not collecting. No. So that's why he can't give tax invoice. So that's why what composition dealer will do, for composition dealer, instead of tax invoice, they have to give a document called bill of supply. Which document they will give? They will give a document called bill of supply. Similarly, let us say you are a regular person only, but you are making an exempt supply. You are a regular person only, but you are making an exempt supply. On exempt supplies also, you can't collect the tax. But for that exempt supplies, you are required to issue a document called bill of supply. So who will give bill of supply? Either a composition dealer or a regular registered person only whenever he is making an exempt supply. So either a composition dealer or a regular person making exempt supplies. On those supplies, since they can't collect the GST amount, so that's why what they will do in that circumstances, they will give bill of supply. And whatever these relaxations we have seen, if the recipient is unregistered, value of supply is less than 200, recipient did not ask for a bill, the same provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. The same provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. These provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. And one more rule is there where they say that if your recipient is an unregistered person, to that person, you are making taxable supply as well as exempt supply. If the recipient is unregistered, and to that unregistered person, if you are making a taxable supply as well as exempt supply, am I required to give two separate documents called tax invoice for taxable supply and for exempt supply bill of supply? Not required. So what they have told is, if the recipient is unregistered, to the same person you are making a taxable supply as well as exempt supply, you can give one single document called invoice cum bill of supply. You can give one single document called invoice cum bill of supply. But this is only when the recipient is unregistered. If the recipient is registered, for taxable supply, you have to give it a separate tax invoice. For exempt supply, you have to give a separate bill of supply. But in case if the recipient is unregistered, you can give one single document invoice cum bill of supply. So whatever it is, this is what regarding 31 subsection 3 clause C. Then going ahead with one more document, there is something called receipt voucher. Sir, what is receipt voucher? Simply, if I have to put it, let us say you are a supplier, you have collected on advance. From the recipient, you have collected on advance. So whenever you are collecting an advance from the recipient, you are required to issue him a document called receipt voucher along with GST. You have to collect your advance along with GST. So you are required to issue something called a receipt voucher as a supplier whenever you have collected the advance. Now, after you have collected the advance, two things can happen. Number one, you will make a supply and invoice you will issue. After you have collected advance, after you have given receipt voucher, two things could happen. Number one, you can issue an invoice. You will make a supply, issue the invoice. Other case, what will happen is, whatever advance you have collected, but thereafter supply did not materialize, you are giving refund. So you have collected advance for supply, but that supply did not take place. In that cases, you have to refund your advance or not? Yes. So in case if you are refunding the advance, whatever you have received because of not receiving the supply, then you have to give something called a refund voucher. Then you have to give something called refund voucher under 31 subsection 3 clause E. So 31 subsection 3 clause D says receipt voucher that is required to be given by the supplier whenever he is receiving the advance. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause E. In case if you have received advance, got the receipt voucher, thereafter you are giving it as a refund, then you are required to give a document called refund voucher. Okay, so like that, two documents will be there, both we have covered. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause F, which is talking about self-invoicing. Regarding that self-invoicing, I have already covered it in input tax credit chapter. In the same marathon, when I was explaining you input tax credit chapter, there I have explained you about self-invoicing. So what is that self-invoicing? Let us say if there is a supplier, he is making some supplies to a recipient which are getting covered under RCM, where the recipient will discharge the amount of GST to the government. No. In that case, if the supplier is registered, he will give tax invoice. In case if the supplier is unregistered, supplier will not give any invoice. Recipient himself has to do a self-invoicing. Recipient himself has to do a self-invoicing under 31 subsection 3 clause F. Within 30 days, you are required to do it. Within 30 days of receiving the supply, you are required to issue that self-invoicing under 31 F. But this will happen only when you are a recipient receiving the supply under reverse charge mechanism, and when the supplier is unregistered, then only you are required to issue a self-invoicing. Then there is one more thing called 31 subsection 3 clause G, which will be talking about payment voucher. This is also applicable in the case of RCM supplies only. If there is a supplier who made some supplies to the recipient which are getting covered under RCM. So whenever you are making the payment to the supplier, you are required to issue something called a payment voucher. You are required to issue something called a payment voucher. And this payment voucher will be given whether supplier is registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. Payment voucher will always be given by the recipient. But self-invoicing will be given only when the supplier is unregistered. So very important point I'm making here. Recipient of RCM supplies, he will give payment voucher in all cases, whether the supplier is registered, unregistered, in all cases he will give payment voucher. But recipient will generate self-invoicing only when the supplier is an unregistered person, then only he will generate the self-invoicing. Why? Because if the supplier is already registered, he himself will give you tax invoice. You are not required to generate the self-invoicing. Understood? So these are all the special documents under 31 subsection 3. They might test a MCQ out of this, so I don't want you to lose the marks on MCQs. That's why I have covered it. And one more concept which we are required to cover as a part of this tax invoices, one more favorite area for the examiner, is e-invoicing. There is a concept called e-invoicing. So what is that e-invoicing? So the government has identified few big suppliers, and they told that when these suppliers are making B2B supplies, it will not just be enough if you generate the invoice on your accounting software or something. You have to go to the e-invoice portal. They have given some e-invoicing portals. You have to go to that e-invoicing portal and generate something called an e-invoice. In case of some big suppliers, what the department told us, for big suppliers and all, first I will tell you what is that criteria. Who will be that big supplier? So the criteria is, just let me tell you whatever is relevant for you. So much of textual discussion will be there, but I will tell you what is important for the exam perspective. Yeah. If you read this first point, all registered businesses with aggregate turnover based on PAN in any preceding financial year, starting from 2017-18 onwards. Starting from the year, that means from the year GST has come into picture, from the year 2017-18 onwards, in any of the preceding financial year, if your turnover has exceeded 5 crores, not in all financial years, my dear students, even if in any of the financial year, even if in one financial year, starting from 2017-18, even if in one financial year, if your aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores, then you are required to generate something called an e-invoicing. You are required to generate a document called e-invoicing. Sir, what is this e-invoicing? Where to generate? So we have something called e-invoice portal. Like this, these websites are there. You can visit any of this website and you have to generate something called a e-invoice. Sir, how that e-invoice will be generated? Simply first what will happen is, you will generate your normal invoice from your accounting software. You will generate normal invoice in the accounting software. Now you will go to this e-invoice portal. Once you go to the e-invoice portal, you will fill there one form, GST INV01. GST INV01, like that one form will be there, where it will ask you all the invoice related details. You have to upload, you have to enter all that information in GST INV01 at this portal, from any of this portal. And after you have entered all the details, the system, that portal, will generate one document called e-invoice, and on that e-invoice there will be one unique number called invoice reference number will be there. One alphanumeric lengthy unique number will be there, invoice reference number. Along with that, on that e-invoice, one embedded QR code also will be there. IRN embedded QR code also will be there. So like that, one document you have to generate it. So first you will generate invoice from your accounting software. Then you will go to the invoice registration portal. There you will fill GST INV01 form. Thereafter, the system will generate one e-invoice which will contain one unique invoice reference number along with one embedded QR code. IRN embedded QR code also will be generated. So like that, one e-invoice you have to carry. Without this e-invoice, if you are a person to whom e-invoicing requirements will become applicable, but if you are not generating the e-invoice, then it will be a non-compliance. You will be liable for punishment. In case if you are a person whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores in any of the preceding financial years starting from 17-18, but you are not generating the e-invoices, it will be a violation of the GST Act. You will be liable for punishment. So if you are a person whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crore rupees, just generating the invoice from your software alone will not be enough. You have to generate this e-invoice with IRN with embedded QR code. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Right. Sir, now, when this is this e-invoice required to be generated for each and every one, sir? No. It is only required to be generated for B2B supplies. E-invoicing is required to be generated only for what? B2B supplies. Only for B2B supplies. For B2C supplies, e-invoicing is not required. For B2C supplies, e-invoicing is not required. For B2B supplies, only e-invoicing is applicable. But however, for exports, sir, what about exports? Exports are also treated at par with exports are also treated as B2B supplies only. Even for exports also, you are required to generate the e-invoice. So all B2B supplies, including exports, you are required to generate the e-invoice. Sir, for B2C supplies, not applicable. Sir, in case of reverse charge supplies, in case if you are a recipient, receiving RCM supplies, for that, are you required to generate e-invoice? No. But the supplier, whoever is making that supply, if his aggregate turnover exceeded 5 crore rupees, even on that RCM supplies also, supplier is required to generate the e-invoice. In case if I'm a supplier here, I'm making my aggregate turnover is more than 5 CR in any of the preceding financial year. I'm making an outward supply, but that supply is getting covered under RCM. I'm making an outward supply, but that supply is getting covered under RCM. My recipient will pay the GST. But who is required to generate e-invoice? As a supplier, I am required to generate e-invoice, not my recipient. And then for import of services, no. For import of services, there is no requirement of generating the e-invoice. Why? Because e-invoicing is applicable for your outward supplies, not for inward supplies. So import of goods also, it is not applicable. Then there are specified persons for whom this e-invoicing is exempted. There are some specified persons for whom e-invoicing is exempted. What do you mean by e-invoicing is exempted? There are some people which the government has identified and they told that, boss, even if your aggregate turnover exceeds a 5 CR in any of the preceding financial year, still we don't want you to generate any e-invoice. Sir, who are that lucky fellows who are not required to generate e-invoice? This list you have to remember, SEZ units. And one more important point, exemption is there only for SEZ units, not for SEZ developer. For SEZ developer, will e-invoicing be applicable? Yes. This anyhow I have given it at the below here, but very important, this you have to remember, only SEZ units are exempted from e-invoicing, not SEZ developer. Insurer, banking company, financial institution including NBFC, they are not required to generate the e-invoice even their aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 CR. GTA supplying services in relation to transportation of goods, GTA service provider is also not required to generate the e-invoice. Suppliers of passenger transportation services are also not required to generate the e-invoice. Person supplying services by admission of exhibition of cinematographic films in multiplex screens. Multiplex theaters are also not required to generate any e-invoice, and even a government department or a local authority. So these are the bunch of people who have been exempted from e-invoicing. What are they? Come on, this list you have to remember. They might ask a direct theory question on this aspect. So SEZ unit, insurer, banking company or financial institution including NBFC, GTA service provider, supplier of passenger transportation services, multiplex theaters and government department and a local entity. And these people who have been exempted from e-invoicing, they have to make a declaration on their invoice. They will give normal tax invoice. No, on that normal tax invoice, they have to give a declaration. What declaration they have to give? They have to give a declaration that even though our aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores in any of the preceding financial year, but still we are exempted from generating e-invoice. That declaration, they have to generate it on the e-invoice. Now all this how e-invoice is generated, all that is not required. This is what the important content from the QR code. From the e-invoice. See, on the e-invoice, I told there will be a QR code, no? On the e-invoice, there will be a QR code, right? On the QR code, what information will be captured? I told you, once you generate the invoice from your accounting software, you go to the e-invoice portal, upload, fill INV01. Thereafter, e-invoice will be generated with QR code. I told you, no? What information will be captured in the QR code? In that QR code, it will capture GSTN of the supplier, GSTN of the recipient, invoice number, date of generation, invoice value, number of line items, HSN code, unique invoice reference number, and also date of generation of that invoice reference number. And one more important circular also they have told, sir, you told for B2B supplies, e-invoicing will become applicable, no? Let us say I am making a supply to a recipient who is registered, but that recipient has taken registration only under section number 51 for deducting TDS. Just now, as we have covered in the TDS chapter, we have seen the people who are required to get registered themselves under section number 51. Okay, sir, I am a registered person, I am a supplier. My aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores. Now you told for all my B2B supplies, I am required to generate an e-invoice. Let us say I am making a supply to a recipient who is registered, but that recipient has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting TDS under section number 51, but not for making any taxable supply. Will it also be treated as B2B supply? If it is treated as B2B supply, am I required to generate e-invoice on that also? Yes. Yes, that's what they say here. E-invoicing applies to supplies made by notified persons to even government departments, agencies, local authorities, and PSUs. You are registered only for the purpose of deduction of TDS under section number 51. Still, they will also be treated as registered persons only. Even though if the recipient is a person who has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting TDS under section number 51, they will also be treated as registered person. It will also be treated as B2B supply. On that supplies also, e-invoice is mandatorily required to be generated. Very important circular, important from the examination perspective. Clear? So this is what regarding e-invoicing. Then we have one more concept called dynamic QR code on B2B invoices, on B2C invoices, sorry. There is one more requirement called dynamic QR code. Sir, what is this dynamic QR code? See, dynamic QR code means, generally we have two kinds of QR code. Let us say, for example, if you go to a shop and buy some item, if you go to a shop and buy some item, and if you want to make payment through your UPI, they will show you one QR code. You will scan that QR code. Once you scan the QR code, amount you have to enter manually. Amount you have to enter manually. Once you enter the amount manually, then only you can make the payment. So that is a static QR code. If I go and make the purchase at the shop, they will show me the same QR code. If some other person goes and makes the payment at that shop, they will also show the same QR code. That is a static QR code. That is a what? Static QR code. So which will not change for person to person. Every customer will scan the same QR code. You have to scan the QR code, enter the amount manually, and make the payment. Yes or no? This is not what I am talking about. There will be something called dynamic QR code. What is dynamic QR code? Which will be changing. This is something which you might have experienced already when you went to the DMart. When you went to DMart or any supermarket, you do the shopping and you want to make the payment using the QR code. You want to make an UPI payment at the counter. Now what will happen is that employee of that supermarket who is at that gate, who is at that counter, he will show you one QR code. He will have one digital device. He will have one digital device like card swiping machine, like that one device will be there. On that device, he will generate one QR code, and that QR code he will show it to you. Once you scan the QR code, amount will get automatically captured. Amount will get automatically captured. You need not enter the amount manually. Just scan the QR code and that amount will get automatically shown in your device, and you have to just make the payment. That is what I call it as dynamic QR code. Now next person, if he comes to the counter and if he wants to make the payment once again, another customer wants to make the payment using UPI, the same QR code will not be shown to him. Now that employee at the counter, he will once again enter the amount, generate a fresh QR code. Now the next customer, when he scans that fresh QR code, whatever amount he has to pay, that will get reflected automatically. That is what we call it as a dynamic QR code. So GST Act has made it mandatory for a few suppliers to compulsorily generate that dynamic QR code. Sir, who are they? And also they are required to generate dynamic QR code only for B2C supplies, not for B2B supplies. They are required to generate dynamic QR code only for B2C supplies. Sir, which suppliers are required to generate the dynamic QR code? Those suppliers whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 2017-18 onwards exceeds 500 crores. For e-invoicing, normal 5 crores. But for dynamic QR code, only for those suppliers whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 500 crores in any preceding financial year starting from 2017-18. So any supplier whose aggregate turnover has exceeded that 500 crores limit in any of the preceding financial year starting from 2017-18, they are only required to generate the dynamic QR code. And once again, this dynamic QR code is only for B2C supplies, not for B2B supplies. Sir, what is the dynamic QR code for? Dynamic QR code is for payment. Payment related details will be captured. So I will tell you here what parameters will be captured in the dynamic QR code is it will not capture the supply or related details. It will capture the payment details like supplier's GST number, supplier's UPI ID, pay's bank account number and IFSC, invoice number and invoice date, total invoice value, GST amount. So like that payment details it will capture. And here also they have given few exemptions for some suppliers. Some suppliers, even though their aggregate turnover has exceeded the applicable, has exceeded that 500 CR, still they are not required to generate the dynamic QR code. Who are that, sir? Insurer, banking company or financial institution, GTA service provider, passenger transportation services, multiplex data. Same like e-invoices exemption list only. For e-invoice also we have exemption list, no? Out of that, 4 are same. Insurer, banking company, GTA, passenger transportation services, multiplex screen providers. These 4 people are common. But for e-invoicing, they say SEZ units, but that relaxation is not given here. SEZ units is not there for not there in the list of exemptions from dynamic QR code. But SEZ is there in the e-invoicing exemption. These 4 are common: insurer, GTA service provider, passenger transportation services, multiplex screens. These list is there even for e-invoicing exemption also, dynamic QR code exemption also. And here one more item has been added: OIDR service provider. Even OIDR services, online information database access and retrieval services, not important for CA Inter, that we will learn it at the CA final level. Even OIDR service provider is also exempted from dynamic QR code requirements. Clear? Right. So these are some bunch of things which are important from the exam perspective. Thereafter, one more thing I would like to cover from here. One more last thing which I would like to cover from here is section number 34, credit and debit notes. Credit and debit notes. This I will try to explain. After that, I will wind up the live for today. So debit note and credit note, this one short discussion we'll try to have. Credit note discussion is very, very important. So debit note and credit note. Sir, what is credit note? What is debit note? First, I will talk about debit note. Let us say, for example, you are a supplier. You made some 1 lakh worth of supply to the recipient, on which you have charged 18,000 rupees of GST also, and you have given one tax invoice charging that charging that invoice amount along with GST. So you have given tax invoice to the recipient. Now, because of some reason, as a supplier, you want to collect an extra amount. In addition to the invoice value, you want to collect something extra. Then you will issue a document called debit note. Sir, what could be the reasons? One reason I have already told you. Let us say this person did not make the payment within time and you want to collect the interest from him. So that interest also should be collected along with GST. So for that interest component, you will give debit note. On the other hand, let us say, for example, by mistake, you sent extra quantity. You did not realize it. You sent extra quantity. So you thought only 1000 quantity has been sent. You gave 1 lakh worth of invoice. But later you realized that you have sent 1100 quantity. Now you want to collect that extra amount for that extra 100 quantity. Now also what you will give? You will give something called a debit note. Or rate difference. By mistake you have applied wrong rate. So actually the product is 55 rupees. But by mistake you have charged him only 50 rupees. Later you have realized. Now you want to collect that extra 5 rupees. Here also you will give something called what? Debit note. So initially you made a supply, you gave a tax invoice charging GST, but you want to collect something extra from your recipient. Then you will issue a document called debit note. On the other hand, reverse is credit note. What is credit note? Let us say, for example, you are a supplier. You made him some supply amounting to 1 lakh rupees, charging 18,000 rupees of GST to the recipient. Now he is actually owing you 1 lakh 18,000 rupees, but you want to reduce that amount. Sir, why you can reduce the amount? It could be a discount, like we have seen in the value of supply chapter. It could be a post supply discount. That's why you want to reduce the amount, and you want to reduce the amount along with GST. Or this recipient is returning the goods. Those goods are not as per his specifications, or those goods are inferior. That's why he might be returning the goods to you. Then also you might be required to issue a document called credit note. Or he's not happy with the quality. The goods are little inferior. He told, sir, I asked you for premium quality. You sent some normal quantity. I will not pay you that much amount. Please give me discount. Then also you can give a credit note. So if I put it in very simple terms, if you have already given a tax invoice, but if you want to reduce that amount payable by your recipient along with GST also, you want to reduce it, then you will give a document called credit note. So we have understood what are the circumstances in which debit note will be given, what are the circumstances in which credit note has been given. Now, this debit note you have to declare whenever you are giving a debit note. That debit note you have to declare in your GSTR1. When you declare the debit note in your GSTR1, what will happen? Your output tax liability will increase. You initially gave 1 lakh worth of supply, 80,000 rupees of GST you have collected. Later, you are giving debit note amounting to 10,000 along with 1800 rupees of GST. This debit note supplier has to declare in his GSTR1. By declaring that debit note in the GSTR1, what will happen? Output tax liability will increase. Your liability will increase by 1800. And if you look at the recipient, on the basis of that debit note, recipient can claim that ITC. On the basis of debit note, recipient can claim that input tax credit. No issue. Sir, is there any time limit for declaring debit note? There is no time limit for declaring debit note. There is no time limit for declaring debit note. You can declare it at any time. Sir, I gave the debit note in the month of April, but I did not declare it in the month of April. No issue. Declare it in the May month. Sir, I did not declare it in the May month. You declare it in June month. Sir, like this, how long, sir? Anytime. Even after 10 years also, if you want to declare, you declare it. Because government will be happy. Because you are declaring and making the payment. No. Not just government will be happy. If you are making a delayed declaration of debit note, you have to pay that amount of GST on the debit note along with interest. How much duration you make the delay. For that duration, even you are liable to pay the interest also. For that duration, you will be liable to pay interest also. So for declaring the debit note, there is no time limit. For declaring the debit note, there is no time limit. Even you can come and declare after 10 years also. Government will be happy because you are coming and paying now by declaring debit note. In addition to being happy, they will also charge you interest. For that 10 years, they will charge you interest also. So there is no time limit for declaration of debit note. Now, when you declare credit note, what actually will happen? So if the supplier is declaring the credit note in his GSTR1, his output tax liability will be reduced. So let us say I initially gave 1 lakh worth of tax invoice. Thereafter, I am giving you 10,000 rupees of credit note along with 1800 rupees of GST also I am giving discount. So now this credit note I will declare in my GSTR1. If I declare this credit note in my GSTR1, my output tax liability will be reduced by 1800. And on the basis of this credit note, recipient is also required to reverse his ITC. Recipient is also required to reverse the ITC and supplier's output tax liability also will be reduced. Sir, is there any maximum time limit for declaring credit note? Yes. Is there any time limit for declaring the credit note in your GSTR1? Yes. Why yes? Because your government has to give you back the money. No. See, when the government has to get the money, no time limit. But by declaring the credit note, they have to give you back the money. So that's why they have put a time limit here. They have put a time limit here. If you want to declare your credit note in your GSTR1 and want to reduce your output tax liability, we will not allow it. For so long, we will have kept one time limit. Within that time limit, if you are coming and declaring the credit note, then only we will reduce your output tax liability. If you are not coming and declaring that credit note within the specified time limit, we will not reduce your output tax liability. Sir, what is that time limit? This time limit is very important. From here, the questions might come. So if you see here, so time limit for declaring the credit note. See here. The time limit is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which such a supply was made. So what is it they're trying to say here? That credit note is required to be declared in the GSTR1 by 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which the supply was made or the date of furnishing of relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. So what they are trying to say, my dear students, what is the maximum time limit for declaration of credit note? Very important point. I'm going to make it here. So you are required to declare the credit note by 30th of November following the end of financial year in which the supply has taken place or date of furnishing of annual return. Date of furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Okay. Now I will give you one scenario. Let us say, for example, in the month of March 2025, I made a original supply. And in the month of March, I have given a tax invoice. Listen carefully. I have given a tax invoice amounting to 1 lakh rupees, 18,000 rupees of GST. This is the tax invoice. Supply has happened in the month of March and I have given tax invoice in the month of March. Now, regarding this tax invoice, I wanted to give a credit note. So what happened is maybe the supplier did not like some inferior, the recipient might have got some inferior quality of the goods. So that's why he's returning some goods back to me. So let us say he's returning that goods back to me in April 2025. In April 2025, I have given credit note. April 2025, I have given credit note. How much, sir? I have given credit note amounting to 10,000 rupees with 1800 rupees of GST. I have given credit note. Now, this credit note, generally what should happen is, since I have given it in the month of April, no, what I will do while filing the return for the month of April, for April month return, I will file in May, no. So while filing the return for the month of May, so that is by May 20 and all, while I am filing the return, I have to declare it. So, sorry, by May 11, I have to declare in my GSTR1. So if I declare that credit note in my GSTR1, then what will happen? My output tax liability will get reduced by 1800 rupees. Sir, I did not do it in May. No issue. When you file the return for the month of May, no, then you try to do it. Sir, in May month return also I did not declare it. No issue. You will file the return for the month of June, no, then you can do it. Sir, like this, how long, sir? They say 30th of November following the end of the financial year. 30th of November following the end of financial year, or date of filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Let us say annual return is filed on 31st of December year. Annual return is later. We will consider 30th of November is only earlier, just for example's sake. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year is only earlier. Let us put it that way. Now, what is the maximum time limit which is available for declaring this credit note in the GSTR1? So 30th of November following the end of the financial year. This credit note was issued in which year? 25-26. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year means what? 30th of November 2026. This credit note was given in the financial year 25-26, no. So this financial year is going to end on 31st of March 2026, no. 30th of November following the end of the financial year. That means 30th of November 2026. Till this time, I will have, this is the maximum time limit within which I am required to declare that credit note in my GSTR1. Correct or not? No. Incorrect. No. Not 30th of November 2026. Because if you see it here, they say 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which such a supply was made, not in which credit note was given. 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply was made, not 30th of November following the financial year in which a credit note is given. Yes or no? So if you go by that logic, this credit note is related to a supply. That supply has taken place in the month of what? March 2025. So supply was taken place in the financial year what? 24-25. 30th of November following the end of the financial year. Sir, what is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply was made? 30th of November 2025 only. So maximum time limit within which you can declare this credit note is 30th of November 2025, not 30th of November 2026. Clear? Because they have told it in the section, the maximum time limit for declaring the credit note in your return is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply has taken place, not in which the credit note has been given. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply relating to that credit note has taken place. So this supply has taken place. I know intentionally that you will commit mistake here. That's why I have chosen this example specifically. This supply has taken place in the financial year 2024-25. So you should not take 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which credit note was given. You have to take the 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which a supply has taken place. So that's why maximum time limit is going to be 30th of November 2025. By this date, you are maximum required to declare the credit note. Sir, what if I want to declare it after this year? No, you can't declare it. You can't declare it. Even if you declare it also, your output tax liability will not get reduced. Your output tax liability will not get reduced if you are declaring it after this date. Understood? Clear? So this is one such important point which you have to pay attention. So this is what in the tax invoice chapter I thought of covering. So this is where many a times MCQs are going to come from. So I don't want you to miss on this area. So that's why I have covered this point as well. And the initial discussion, whatever we had, 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 2, 31 subsection 4, 31 subsection 5, time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods, continuous supply of services, normal supply of goods, normal supply of services. That is very important, but that is because that is from where time of supply chapter is taking its roots from. Okay, right. So this is what regarding tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So with this, I am winding up the live. So today we have done 3 chapters. Place of supply we have done, TDS and TCS we have done. Thereafter we have done this tax invoice, debit and credit notes. 3 important chapters we have done. So with this I am going to wind up for today.